An auction is taking place where people are being exchanged, and the lot presented is a kneeling, redhead girl. Someone in the crowd says the price for the chained girl is 1 million gudas. The auction leader, not realizing someone had exceeded the price, announces that the foreigner was sold for 1 million. A man with black embroidered gloves, as if hunting, approached the kneeling girl. The gloved hand belongs to a long-haired blonde man with a mask and cape. Apparently, this man is of noble blood. Taking his purchase in his hands, the buyer asked the auction host if he could keep the girl, because she now belonged to him. Exhausted by the chains, knees, and other hardships, the girl clings to the man who bought her. The man leaves the auction with his purchase, but the redhead, despite her weakness, feels tormented by not knowing what the person who paid such a sum for her is going to do. The masked man, smiling slightly, literally from the corners of his lips, offers the rescued woman a nap until they reach another place. The heroine, practically disconnected, manages to mentally notice that the savior's gaze is ice cold, without paying further attention to anyone, as if scattering a glow around her. The mysterious man leaves the human auction. The girl finds herself on a luxurious bed. Apparently, this is the place the man promised to reach her while she sleeps. Finding herself on a strange bed and in an unknown environment, the ex-captive jumped up as if stung. It was necessary to understand what had happened. Having regained some breath, the girl drew attention to her trembling hands and the scars on her wrists left by the shackles. The door opened. 2 servants looked into the room. They were glad to see that the girl had regained consciousness. The butler informed the guest that she was on the estate of the Duke of Schweden. Upon hearing this information, the girl jumped away from the servants. The men tried to calm the foreigner, telling her that no one on the Schweden estate would harm her, and that there was no reason to be afraid. The girl does not feel calmer knowing where she is. All her senses intensify to the limit. The tension does not decrease. The heroine learns from the servants how long she has been here. The butler informs her that 4 days have passed, and everyone was worried because she hadn't regained consciousness for a long time. In an imperious tone, the girl demands that they give her a pencil and paper. Upon the maid's comment that everything is in front of her, the rescued girl demands even more aggressively that they give her what she needs. The lady orders the paper to be placed at her feet. The servant, without further argument, considering the girl capricious, fulfills her demand. As soon as the paper and pen touch the floor, the demanding guest runs as fast as possible towards the object she needs. Having obtained what she needed, the girl decides for herself that if this is truly the mansion of the Duke of Schweden, then they must leave it immediately, before understanding who the lady is. Taking the pen, the girl begins to draw, but due to the trembling of her hands, it doesn't turn out very well. Unfortunately, she has no other option. Having finished the drawing, the heroine, without losing a second, jumps onto the windowsill. The servants make a weak attempt to stop her. The girl jumps, a lock of her red hair shines, and an incomprehensible flash leaves a mark. The drawing of a bird slowly burns in the air. With the help of magic, a bird is born from a sheet onto which the heroine descends in a confident posture. During her escape, she tries not to lose her main weapon, a feather taken from the Schweden estate. Having escaped the estate on a magical bird, the girl lands in an alley not far from the estate. After looking around, the heroine realizes that she needs some kind of means of transport. She will represent it on paper and use magic. Suddenly, someone knocks the girl down. She falls to the ground, scattering all the sheets and losing her pen. Upon hearing the voice of the one who knocked her down, the girl realizes that this person is familiar to her, and she raises her head to confirm her assumption. Bright golden hair, aristocratic profile, strong and large swordsman's arms. A man who looked like a god descended from heaven was Duke Lucius of Schweden. The Duke stood over the fugitive, looking at her at point-blank range. The girl was even confused by his gaze. Looking at Schweden, the heroine realized she had made a mistake. In that brief moment, memories flashed through the girl's head. She found herself in this book about 10 days ago. The girl woke up in complete darkness on something hard. A cart with a wooden box was moving through the desert, and it was there that the heroine found herself. Sitting in a box, a girl overhears a conversation between 2 men about the fact that there is a first-class slave in the box, and that the prince himself and the descendant of the sun god will attend the auction, and also that desert women are very hot. She understands that she is in the body of villain number 4. The girl's assumption turns out to be correct. As silent proof, number 4 is in the box where the girl is locked. The girl was pulled out of her memories, by a gesture of the Duke's hand. She is completely confused, but responds to the offer to get up. It's a very popular book. Thousands of people should have read it, but our heroine only read half of it. Villain number 4. A girl named Shay, who loved the main character of the book more than anyone, could not stand the main character, and she was the one who watched the main character die by falling off a cliff. Villain number 4 is essentially the most unfortunate character. The other 3 villains despise her, and the victim trapped in villain number 1's trap dies in prison. Standing in front of the mirror, the girl understood why there was hatred towards Shay. It was about her beauty. She was too beautiful even for a fairy tale book. While the fake Shay was in the bath, someone knocked on her door, and the servant's voice announced that His Excellency was asking her to join him for dinner. The girl accepts. As she prepares to go to dinner, the heroine discovers a house dress in the closet that the butler prepared for her. Upon receiving an invitation to dinner, she thought that she was not used to speaking like the aristocrats in books and, in general, she did not trust the noble origin of the one whose body she was in. Seeing the girl enter, the Duke noticed that she had calmed down and quickly invited her to sit at the table. The heroine accepted the invitation to the table, but thoughts invaded her head that there was some kind of mixed world here, in which there were sword fights, horseback riding, hot air balloon rides, and train travel all at the same time. The servants brought lunch. The dish looked appetizing. The Duke invited she to try this clam soup. The girl tries the proposed dish and is completely delighted. This is because for the entire time she has been in this story, she is eating normally for the first time. At some point during lunch, the man decides it's time to introduce himself, and he says his name, Lucius de Schweden, and is also interested in knowing how the girl was captured. The heroine remembers the plot of the book she read to answer the Duke's question. Shay, the 4th villain born in a small magical kingdom, inherited a rare magical gift of drawing, which consisted of the ability to turn everything Shay drew into reality. After a short pause, the girl said her name, and to Schweden's question, she gave a brief answer that they had discovered she was a drawing mage, and that when she escaped through the desert, she carried neither pencil nor paper. After listening to the interlocutor, Lucius invites her to live on the estate if she has nowhere else to go, as well as to testify against the criminals accused of human trafficking and holding illegal auctions. After thinking for a while, the girl accepts Schweden's proposal, understanding that, in any case, she will need time to recover. After the conversation, the Duke leaves the guest, taking care of her. She thinks that apparently, due to his rotation in high society throughout his life, Schweden cannot stand long conversations and probably feels uncomfortable when looked in the face for a long time. The butler's entry into the dining room awakens the heroine's interest, who needs to find out what she can do to earn as much money as possible. Some time later, the butler gave a report to Schweden. He told the Duke about the girl's interest in earning money, and he also said that she did not wander around His Excellency's room at night or collect her hair. Seeing the voodoo dolls burning in the fireplace, Lucius concluded that the girl was not interested in that magic, but only needed money. The Duke said out loud that it would be good if the girl didn't fall in love with him. The butler advises him to write a check. Such a suggestion makes Lucius think. The heroine is enjoying the bath. The little assistants are bustling around, helping her wash her hair. An idea is brewing in She's head about how to earn extra money. She remembers the butler's advice that she should go into the entertainment industry, or into making clothes. The girl concludes that the world of the book and reality have no differences regarding ways to get rich. In her mind, she is creating a luxury clothing brand. She decides that this business will succeed anyway, and that everything must be thought out and planned carefully. Smiling at her thoughts, the girl tries to devise an alternative to alcohol in the entertainment industry, because there are no people who don't like to have fun. In these thoughts, another thought comes to her that her adaptability is much better than most people, because her life has changed dramatically, but not a single tear fell from my eyes. Out of her pleasant daydreaming, she was pulled out by a knock on the door and the Duke's voice asking if everything was all right. The girl looked at her watch, realizing that a whole hour had passed. She replied that she was completely fine and just needed to rinse again. Not without the help of the little ones, the door opened. The Duke of Schweden appeared in the hallway, and she and Lucius felt awkward about the current situation. Embarrassed, the Duke quickly closed the door. The girl didn't know where to escape from what was happening. She certainly didn't expect this. Realizing who helped open the door, she became very angry with the little ones. Angry, she shouted that she would kill them. The little ones quickly said goodbye to the girl and ran out. After everyone left, the girl panicked. She didn't know how she would look Lucius in the eyes now, because now, perhaps, her future was completely destroyed. After leaving Shi's bath, the Duke walked down the hallway. He assessed the image he saw in his own way. Schweden noticed how thin the girl really was. Moreover, all the abrasions received in captivity did not add any sophistication. The Duke decided that after all, she was of noble origin and he did not show her due respect. Lucius calls Maynard and orders him to bring the guest an ointment to heal the wounds, and also to serve her more bread, meat, more cheese, and anything that would help the girl get better and gain weight. Standing by the window, Schweden thought about how thin the girl was and that she was worth helping in some way. Lucius remembered that he had previously met girls who deliberately tried to get close, and this always made him terribly sick. But she does not evoke those feelings. She seems as indifferent as possible towards him. But what if that girl is by his side? An ancient legend says that to neutralize the scorching heat of the sun, a woman with strong lunar energy is needed. The best solution is marriage, but the couple must be rational to strictly fulfill the obligations of a fictitious marriage. Walking down the hallway after the incident in the bathroom, Shay, lost in thought, meets Maynard. He invites the girl to the dining room. She hopes Lucius hasn't arrived yet. Upon entering the room, the heroine freezes. Seeing the abundance of cakes and sweets on the table, Shay is completely delighted. The arriving Duke distracts the guest from her delight with sweets, and the servant brings the main course. Lucius and Shay sit down at the table as if nothing had happened. The girl is practically drooling over the steak in front of her, but the girl has not moved in high society, and she doesn't know how to eat it. She decides to observe the Duke. Seeing that the guest does not touch the meat, Lucius leans over her and asks if the girl really doesn't like meat. Shay, slightly confused, replies that she does. Schweden kindly cuts the steak for the girl and places a plate in front of her. Shay thanks the Duke, but mentally tries to understand why he is doing this, and if he really behaves this way with all girls. The heroine holds a newspaper in her hands. She tells Lucius that in the evening news, she saw information about the Duke's affair with another girl. And if this is not true, then why doesn't the Duke speak directly to the publisher? Schweden explains that he is not interested in novels and that conversations with the publisher are useless, because the princess herself is behind all this. The girl again has to remember what she read. The princess is villain number 2. She constantly tries to get between the main characters. She is strong, which is why they talk about her as the heir to the throne, but she also has an inclination for sadism, and her hobby is making handsome men cry. Lucius tells she about the crowds of ladies who follow him every time he returns from work, and that bribing servants is a common practice, which is why only Maynard and Theobald remain on the estate, a complete violation of all boundaries. When these supposed fans throw themselves under his feet during sword training and watch while bathing, Lucius expressed all this to the girl. Having shared such information with she, the Duke wants to make some proposal to the girl. She shows interest. Schweden proposes marriage to the newly rescued girl. Fake She is in complete shock at such a declaration. She doesn't understand why such proposals come from Lucius. The girl, confused, asks if everything is fine with her hearing, and if the Duke is really proposing marriage to her. Schweden confirms his words, but clarifies that it will only be for 3 years and they must first get engaged. But the point is the marriage. She does not immediately accept the Duke's proposal. She doesn't understand where this confidence comes from and why Schweden needs her, which she informs him about. Lucius invites her to think carefully, because if she agrees, she can accept all bribes and gifts offered to her. The Duke remembered the illegal auction. He described to the girl how she looked in his eyes. Even though the girl was inflated with some substances, her gaze said she was ready to tear everyone apart. And this impressed him greatly. So much so, Lucius decided that if he chooses her, the girl will be able to surprise everyone. The heroine thinks there is a possibility that she will have to stay here forever. So this is a good opportunity. Lucius offers her money and a luxurious life, especially since there is at least a year left before the appearance of the main character of the series. Book. There is enough time. Schweden repeats once more that he is not interested in marriage or relationships. He only needs to create the appearance of love until the grave. He describes to she all the freedoms she will be allowed. Lucius introduces her as the most luxurious and unpleasant woman in this empire, so that when they see her, no one will think of approaching the Duke. She is interested in the amount of payment for such a service. After hearing 10 billion gudas in response, the girl doesn't think much and accepts. She calls Lucius' partner and says she will be happy to show him a real bitch. To secure her financial situation, Shay asks him to give her half of the fee in advance. The girl promises to put on an incredible performance, but wants to set 2 more conditions. Slightly tense, Lucius wonders what conditions Shay is setting. He fears it is related to personal matters. The heroine expresses her demands. The first is to be on the girl's side in any situation, no matter what happens. And the second condition was that if the Duke sincerely falls in love with someone, he will send she to a safe place. Lucius agrees. He considers such conditions an insignificant price for a normal life. She simply lights up with enthusiasm after the Duke's consent. She promises to scare away all the girls who dare to approach Lucius. The heroine already has an idea of how rich she is and how much she can buy with 10 billion. Theobald brings the contract, which was prepared in advance by the Duke. With this, the butler brings she back from dreams to reality. The girl studies the contract. She finds her new name in it, Titania Oberon. She likes it. It sounds like the name of some fairy and suits she very well. She listens carefully to the legend, invented by the Duke for her. According to the legend, she is from a poor village family. She moved to the capital to get a job as a domestic servant, but was captured. After listening, the girl finds similarities with the story of Cinderella. Lucius has absolutely no idea who Cinderella is. There is no such story in his world. She has to explain that this is a romantic fairy tale that many adore. Having studied everything again, the girl agrees and extends her hand to the Duke to close the deal. The Duke of Schweden stands up to shake she's hand, but feels uncomfortable. Suddenly, surprising the girl, Lucius jumps onto the table, paying no attention to the dishes there. The next second, the man drops she to the floor, covering her with his body. As soon as the girl lying on the floor tries to rebel, Lucius covers her mouth with his hand and asks her to be quiet, adding the phrase that the enemy does not sleep. Shay really wants to know what it was. She looks from behind the Duke and asks if there are still unknown enemies there. Lucius shows the girl the hand with which he protected her and explains that it was poisoned needles with a sleeping potion. The heroine falls into a state of slight panic, especially when she realizes that poisoned needles were aimed at her face. The girl remembers from the book that only one person would use such methods to eliminate rivals. And this is villain number 1. Deciding for herself that it didn't matter who it was, Shay adopted the most decisive attitude. Finally, remembering her skills, the girl grabbed the ink bottle she had used earlier to sign the contract. Without much hesitation, Shay asks Lucius to turn around and take off his jacket. He doesn't understand the girl's intentions at all, but agrees. Using the Duke's back as a canvas, the heroine begins to create. When Schweden asks what she is doing, she explains her position, not calming down until she takes revenge on the aggressor. At the same time, the girl wonders if the aggressors have already left. Having received an affirmative answer to the question about the enemies, the girl forces the Duke to take off his shirt, which he does not do willingly. After taking the shirt with Schweden's pattern, the heroine, hidden behind the door, waits for the right moment to act actively. Having caught the right moment, she throws a piece of clothing directly into the hands of the attacking bandits, who are preparing to catch the innocent shirt. The heroes watch what is happening on the street. Lucius with misunderstanding, she with a slight smile. The girl chose not to answer the Duke's question about what was drawn that made the bandits disappear. Rejoicing in the victory over the mercenaries, she reminds her lordship of her fee of 10 billion. The Duke assures the girl that he will not forget the reward and explains that she should call him by his name in public. After hearing Lucius, she sarcastically offers the possibility of choosing from 4 other directions, such as darling, bunny, baby, or son. Falling onto the bed, the girl thought that under no circumstances would she refuse the contract for 10 billion. And no matter how terrible the character of the other villains was, because there was a possibility to deal with them. Taking paper and pen, the fake she decides to organize everything she remembers about this book, into which she fell by the will of fate. The heroine recalls information about the remaining villains. Villain number 1 is the daughter of Prince Peridot Christian. Villain number 2 is Princess Tiolsterant, and villain number 3 is Countess Macy Ammonton. But she doesn't deserve much attention, as she is only the president of Lucius's fan club. We need to find a way to defeat villain number 2, the princess herself. And it seems this is the only possible one. while the butler removes the needles from the Duke's arm and treats the wounds. Lucius reflects on She's words, whether they should address each other as she suggested, or if it would be too much. Bandaging the master's hand, Theobald assumes that since Schweden defended the girl, something about her caught the Duke's attention. The knight calls She strange, but it seems to him that the girl has nerves of steel. Lucius is worried that his guest will not give up. The butler reassures him by telling him that she will neither give up nor die, and advises the owner to get some sleep. As he prepares to go to bed, the Duke receives the inexplicable feeling that everything might turn out well with this girl, but that there is a lot of work to be done. In the morning, She knocks on the Duke's door, calling him to tell him it's time to get up. When Lucius opens it, saying he is already awake, the girl demands that he go out, because they need to buy a lot. In fact, the Duke offers to call the merchants to the estate. The girl rejects Lucius's proposal and insists on going out shopping, because this way, a large number of people will be able to see them together. And this will also make it clear that the Duke is in a relationship. Schweden does not allow She to go out, arguing that she was attacked a couple of days ago, and that going out could be dangerous. The heroine does not get lost in such a situation and stands firm. She informs the Duke that she has prepared something to protect herself, while putting her hand into her cleavage, and makes Schweden uncomfortable. She pulls a piece of paper from her dress and shows Lucius a drawing of a bird. The girl says she will keep the design in her cleavage, and, in a good mood, shows the Duke her ankle. Lucius is very embarrassed and asks She not to show him everything in such detail. The girl makes him smile with embarrassment. She explains that Lucius shouldn't worry so much and should go out, because she needs to buy a good watercolor set. In the carriage, the girl asks Schweden, despite his aversion to women, to play his role convincingly. If he doesn't know how to behave, he should play along, to which the Duke promises to try. After informing the Duke, She, or Titania, about the contract, she thinks it would be fantastic if the first rumors spread. And first, she needs to draw the public's attention to Lucius towards herself. Lucius reports that they have arrived and that there is an art store here. And he also reminds the partner that she doesn't need to worry about the prices of materials. Upon getting out of the carriage, Lucius, as befits a man of high society, extends his hand to the lady. Looking at She, he suggests that she take his hand. Titania, responding to the Duke's gesture, thinks that he looks like a completely different person when he behaves like this. And besides, it's not worth failing her first mission, as there are enough spectators. After planning a game for the public, the girl pretends to stumble and fall into Schweden's arms, which he clearly did not expect. Continuing the performance, the heroine thanks the Duke, calling him Lucy in response to the gratitude. Lucius calls the girl by the short name Nea. Noticing how Schweden trembled when he touched her, Titania finally became convinced that he hated women. When the heroes left the carriage, the crowd glared at the girl's back, which made her feel out of place, but since she agreed to take charge of such a handsome man, she would have to endure it. When the heroes entered the store, She became interested in the materials, but casually told the Duke that he shouldn't pay attention to the gossip behind their backs. Having chosen a suitcase with paints, Nea moved to another shelf. Without hesitation, she handed the chosen one to Lucius, and he noticed that the girl didn't particularly care about the opinions of others. Schweden watched She choose the brushes. Despite her height of 170 centimeters, she seemed small to Lucius. The Duke imagines that Titania would look good standing by the easel with a brush in her hands. In his opinion, she was beautiful and serene. Having finished choosing the brushes, Nea turned to Lucius, which distracted him from his dreams. Apologizing in advance, the girl grabbed the Duke by his clothes and pulled him towards her, after which she kissed the confused Lucius, having completely embarrassed Schweden and attracted the attention of involuntary spectators. She pretends it was an accidental kiss. Approaching the cash register, the Duke demanded payment, but the seller did not immediately understand what they wanted from her. The impression of She's antics was too strong. After paying, Lucius almost ordered his partner to leave, but she obediently agrees. Back in the carriage, She hands the Duke a handkerchief so he can clean up after the fake kiss in the art store. Schweden takes the handkerchief from the girl's hands and asks if she wants to wipe herself. The heroine doesn't understand why he needs to wipe his lips. Deep down, she is even glad that she stole a kiss from such a handsome man. The next place to visit was a store with good quality dresses. As a person far from fashion, Lucius asks the salespeople to choose dresses for his fiancée, clarifying that the price does not matter. The main thing is that it suits his companion. The store workers happily run towards she. They are ready to do everything possible to meet the expectations of the future Duchess. While waiting for her to try on the dress, the future Duchess thinks about what will happen next. Since the Duke of Schweden and his fiancée bought clothes in this store today, the news will soon spread, and no one will care about the design of the dresses. As the girl expected, everything suited her, no matter what she wore. So calling the workers, she, pointing with her hand to half the store, announced that she would take it all. When the future spouses returned to the estate after dinner, Shay fell asleep on the dining room sofa. It seemed that she was very tired. Maynard offered to carry the girl to the bedroom, but Lucius refuses the servant. He thinks Maynard will wake the girl up. Having sent the servant away, Schweden, with a glass of wine, wonders where Shay came from, because he studied all the available information about her, but found nothing significant. During the interrogation of the traffickers, it was confirmed that she was captured in the desert, but it was not possible to find out where the girl was before. Leaving his glass, the Duke sat down next to the girl. Examining her, Lucius thought that everything that was happening was very surprising. Schweden calls Theobald and orders that a lounge be assigned to she, and that the purchased materials be transferred there, as well as that the best varieties of the girl's favorite fruits be prepared. Realizing that he was in a good mood, the Duke remembered the situation in the art store. Even though it was more of an accidental touch of lips than a kiss, for some reason Lucius wanted to feel it again. For some reason. The reason why touching she did not cause him disgust. Everywhere, an emergency release was sold with a column on the main page, stating that the Duke of Schweden had a fiancée. Many wanted to know who this lucky woman was. The hooded man asked the boy for a newspaper, and the boy quickly found one in his bag. Raising his head to hand over the newspaper, the boy was horrified to see whom he saw under the robe. The black-haired man took the newspaper and stepped aside. He studied the photo on the spread, seeing a girl he knew as the Duke's fiancée. He was not happy because the man was looking for her, and when he found her, such news appeared. At the princess's castle, the article was discussed. The blonde was very indignant and shouted that this was unacceptable and that it was impossible to look at this situation from the outside. The second girl was worried that nothing was known about the Duke's fiancé, and if it turned out to be from the royal family. The princess sympathizes with her friends' concerns and offers to organize a tea party and invite Schweden's fiancé. During lunch, she assessed the situation. A little over 2 weeks had passed since she moved to the Duke's property, and several assassination attempts had been made on her life. Of the attacks during this time, there were 3 attempts at night, twice by throwing homemade bombs while walking, and once by mixing iron filings with bath cream. After reflecting on the situation, the girl shares with the Duke the idea that the rumors about her should have accumulated enough to surround the wall of the city 5 times, and perhaps it is worth trying to take a walk outside the city. The Duke, after hearing she, agrees to go for a walk, saying he has a place in mind, but that it is dangerous there. This place is the Imperial Palace, and there is a training ground for knights. Shay happily agrees to visit the training ground, because there will be a person she needs to meet to save her life. This person is Cientina Adales. She is from the elite of the knightly order, and is endowed with extraordinary strength. The heroine thought about it, because if she manages to befriend Cientina and villain number 2, then everything will not be so bad, especially with the knight. Otherwise, it will be boring to deal with her. So it's better to make her your ally. Looking in the mirror, Shay remembers another detail about Ciantin. She has a weakness for cute and short girls. Well, Shay is pretty, but a little tall. The heroine decides that it is still worth a try. As they set off, the Duke informs his companion that today there will be an official duel to update the ranking within the Order of Knights. The girl is not sure if civilians can be present there. After Lucius's answer that, in general, civilians are not supposed to be there, but that she must be present because she is the bad girl he fell in love with. The heroine accepts that she has the role of a crazy bitch. Seeing Schweden, the knights greeted him and addressed him with the rank of captain. This once again reminded she that Lucius was a representative of high society. The Duke introduces his companion to the knights as his wife, Miss Oberon. Cientina Adales appears on site and demands that the captain send the girl home, because this is not a place where one can show up out of curiosity, and, in general, this is a violation of the rules. Noticing that the knight girl in life is even better than in the book, she hides behind a fan and apologizes in an attempt to make her feel sorry for her. She tells Cientina that she knew this was impossible, but thought the Duke would leave the fiancé. It's just unbearable. Thinking of something sad, Miss Oberon managed to shed a tear and thus win the affection of the other knights. But not the Night Lady. Cientina is absolutely dissatisfied with this situation. She tries to object, but no one listens to her anymore. Unheard, Cientina passes by the Duke's fiancé and touches her with her shoulder, noting in passing that Titania is skillfully playing her role. Inside everything is turning upside down. She realizes that the plan to make friends has been covered with a copper basin. The question has arisen whether it is possible to get along with this lady. Madame Shantina Adales and Sir Ormond Tyrols are called to a duel. The knights salute and the battle begins. Seeing the start, she clarifies with her partner that only knights among the top 30 can participate in the duel, and in what place Cientina is. Having learned from Lucius about the 31st place, the fiancé assumes that today she will enter the 30. At this moment, the knights in the arena cross their swords with such force that sparks fly. The loud metallic noise makes she cover her ears, while Lucius draws her attention to something on the side. Schweden noticed that a man was standing near the sword stand. Drawing his companion's attention to this, the Duke explained that he was standing where the couple was clearly visible, and that this guy was the princess's spy. After seeing Shay suffer, Lucius covers his ears with his hands, and at that moment the girl thinks that even in a place like a knightly order, spies penetrate. Returning to the duel, Shay asks the Duke if she can choose who to support. Having received a positive answer, the girl is inspired, because all knights receive support from ladies during a duel. Miss Oberon shouts from the podium how beautiful Cientina is, and that she will definitely win, which makes the young knight blush with embarrassment. Lucius smiles at Shay's action. She is perplexed because she wanted to give a compliment. Does Madame Adales really hate her now? Schweden reassures the fiancé by telling her that Cientina is very shy. Cientina's rival even envied her because so much beauty supported her, to which Madame Adales responded with aggression. Something impossible happens. Cientina's sword is enveloped in a glow. Madame herself seems to double her strength and immediately wins the duel. Lucius assesses Adales's work well and says she has moved up in the ranking. Shay is surprised and asks her boyfriend what kind of fighting technique Cientina used. Clapping for the knights, the Duke explains to his companion that it was not a technique, but a power that manifests when the knight reaches a certain level. Shay guesses that apparently the power manifests because the sword's power is growing, and Lucius confirms it. Cientina stood under the balcony and, as the winner of the duel, asked the captain to become her opponent. The Duke accepts her challenge, and they go out for a one-on-one duel. The duel began. The sound of swords filled the arena with their sound. Captain Schweden and Madame Adales gave their all. The Duke's future wife stood on the balcony holding her breath and trying not to miss a second of the fight. At that moment, Lucius and Cientina crossed swords again. On the battlefield, Lucius received the nickname Mad Knight because when he fights there is a crazy tension in the air. Now Captain Schweden looked as if the fight was pure fun. She noticed that the area near the sword stand had become empty. The observer had disappeared. If the heroine had been in his place, she probably would have tried to attack. The girl took out a prepared design for protection, the one she wore in her cleavage. The flying spear inexorably approached the Duke's fiancé. The magic of drawing worked. A large protective bird appeared behind she, which covered the artist with huge wings. The spear hit the defender right in the wing. Due to the dust that rose, no one noticed how she used magic. But the captain and Madame Adales disappeared somewhere in the arena. Cientina appeared out of nowhere and told she that she had warned her that it was better to go home. Miss Oberon wondered where the Duke had gone, to which she received the answer that Lucius had gone to catch the attacker. Then Madame Adales finally notices the bird next to she and wonders where it came from. The girl does not admit that the bird is a product of magic, but says it is a guardian bird bought in an alley, and that if it weren't for the bird, she would have been run through by a spear. Shay complains that she hasn't been in the capital long and doesn't know the local customs. Much less has she done anything wrong to anyone. Cientina, with all the honor of a knight, insists that regardless of who is behind this, a thorough investigation must be carried out, and those responsible must be severely punished. The Duke's fiancé sheds a tear in front of Madame Adales and says she behaved indecently because it had been so long since she went out in public, not even to a cafe or an exhibition like other people. And Cientina did what she had to do. The lady knight feels ashamed and doesn't know how to behave in the face of such revelations. The awkward situation is interrupted by Lucius's return after searching for the spy. The future wife throws herself onto the Duke's chest and hugs him, as if there had been a very long separation. Once the display of joy is over, the girl wants to know who her future husband was after all. In a whisper, Lucius tells his fiancée that it was an assassin whom the Duke caught near the greenhouse. The girl again has to recall the original story, according to her, in the greenhouse of the Imperial Palace. The number one villain was plotting his intrigues. Schweden wants to know if she knows anything, but all she knows is that shortly before the attack, the spy watching them disappeared. The next day, at the Schweden estate, she was reading a newspaper issue, and she found an article about herself written from the words of an anonymous knight from the Rentis order. It said that the lady was mysterious, and that this knight had become a prisoner of love. The girl was distracted from the ridiculous article by Maynard, who brought a letter, which surprised she, because there was no one here to write to her. Theobald opens the letter and hands it to the lady. It turns out to be an invitation to a tea party from Princess Tialaise. When the butler asks if she will go by invitation, she replies that she must look the main culprit of all of Lucius's problems in the eyes herself. She asks Maynard to send someone to the boutique for a ready-made dress. If it's hard to choose, have them deliver everything. The girl decides that before the servant returns, she needs to bring a maid to protect her. The girls from the boutique arrived with their arms full of dresses, absolutely delighted that Lady Titania would wear one of their creations. Before starting the fitting, Shay explains the rules to the girls. The first is forbidden to steal Lucius's underwear, and the second is forbidden to collect and sell his hair, and thirdly, never tell anything about what happened on the estate. And lastly, don't hang on to the Duke and don't fall in love with him. The girls agree to such conditions. They are delighted with how Nea loves the Duke. In their minds, the heroine guards and protects her beloved man. Shale's hands contracts to the women to sign, and they do not hesitate to sign their autographs on the paper. Immediately after signing the contracts, cats appeared on the girls' laps, which greatly surprised them, and they decided that these were Lady Titania's cats. Miss Oberon explained that these are contracted cats, bought from a magician, and if the girls break even one rule, the cats will turn into monsters, and they will tear them to pieces. And the cats are very cute. At that moment, Maynard brought a cart with a variety of desserts into the room. Shay offered to treat herself to snacks, and if the girls especially liked something, they could ask for more. And moreover, for the entire time they were on the estate, if they were hungry, they could ask Maynard for whatever they wanted. The heroine herself drinks tea with pleasure and rejoices in her sudden wealth. While enjoying tea and waiting for her fitting, Shay reflects on the fact that the number of kidnappings has noticeably decreased lately. A dark-haired boy in a cloak entered the estate. His head was filled with thoughts about Shay and the fact that she left him for the Duke. Upon returning home, Lucius asks the butler where she is. Theobald announces that the girl is with guests. The Duke doesn't quite understand what kind of guests there could be, but the butler explains that the lady called the milliners from the workshop. Schweden finds out what the dressmakers are needed for, and Theobald tells him about the princess's invitation to a tea party, and also reports that Maynard noticed a suspicious person on the mansion's territory. Theobald describes who was seen by Maynard. It was a tanned man standing near the estate, and it seems he had a tattoo on his face. Schweden clarifies if this stranger was a man from the desert, but Theobald is not sure and offers to send people to look for him, because the man has an unusual appearance, and his trail can be found quickly. While immersing himself in the bath, Lucius remembered the only time in his life when a duel ended in a draw, and this fight was with a desert warrior. During that battle, there was a creepy feeling, as if everything around the Duke had disappeared, and he was left alone with this warrior. Schweden and the man with slanted eyes on the battlefield, the desert warrior looked as if he were ready to die in battle, as if life was weighing him down, and he had the power to kill Lucius in battle. Lucius might be exaggerating this situation, because this stranger cannot be that desert warrior. In the morning, Shay loudly knocked on Lucius's door, telling him to wake up, and pretending to be incredibly bored. The Duke left the room, and the girl closed her eyes at how handsome Lucius looked at that moment. She hadn't noticed this before. Finally seeing how the Duke is dressed, the fiancé asks where he is going in that state, to which Schweden calmly replies that he is going to have tea. Shay doesn't believe him and doesn't understand why Lucius should go to the party. And in fact, Miss Oberon was invited there, not the Duke, but Lucius insists on his own accord. In the carriage, the girl asks why her fiancé has been almost invisible lately. Lucius replies that he is busy with something that needs to be resolved, and that he refers to Shay. He is also interested in whether someone might have helped the girl cross the desert. Fake Shay actually has no idea how to cross the desert, since villain number 4 first appears in the book during the auction. Having understood the current situation, Shay pretends not to remember anything about the desert. And now she wonders why Lucius needs this information, but avoids answering because they are approaching. When the carriage arrived, Lucius, as usual, offered the girl his hand. And upon getting out, she calls him sweetheart, which embarrasses him. The Duke asks her to use one nickname at a time. As soon as the couple got out of the carriage towards them, or rather towards Lucius, the ladies rushed forward with enthusiastic cries of how they had dreamed of seeing him, pushing she aside and not noticing her at all. Miss Oberon does not like this situation, and silently takes out a magic drawing she kept with a very interesting creature to fix something. A caterpillar crawls onto the dress of one of the ladies, which horrifies her completely, and she calls the maid to remove the insect. She hugs her fiancé, pretending to be very scared by the centipede and feigning indignation at how the princess can live in a place where they don't clean. And generally, she probably shouldn't be here. The ladies try to defend the princess's honor, because they don't know where this lady of repulsive manners came from, and they want to connect the appearance of the centipede with the appearance of an unknown girl. To annoy the ladies, Shay reveals that he and Lucy were very hot this morning, and that he really didn't want to let her go. He carries the girl, and, turning to the Duke, she clarifies that her fiancé really didn't want to let her go. The completely lost Lucius has to confirm this lie. Otherwise, the whole legend will be destroyed. Having finished dealing with the ladies, Shay asked the servant to show her where the tea party would take place. He, impressed by the girl's beauty, didn't immediately understand what they wanted from him. But once he oriented himself, he showed the way. Having walked a little ahead, the lady thanks her fiancé for seeing her off. But now it's time for him to return, because men are not allowed to enter such a party. Lucius replies that it is his duty, and if something goes wrong, Shay should call. Finally, Shay met the number 2 villain, Tiole's Adela Turrent, sitting at the table with the princess. The heroine says she is happy to meet your highness. The princess invites the guest to play with dolls with her. Shay doesn't immediately grasp this topic of conversation. The girl once again has to recall the book. She says that the princess has the nickname of doll collector. She flirts with men, collects women at tea parties, and plays with people as if they were dolls. Shay rejects such entertainment with a smile so as not to accidentally offend the princess. But she clearly doesn't like this entertainment. Upon hearing the refusal, Tioles invites the guest to become her doll, bribing her with the fact that she is generous with her toys and allows them a lot. But Nea refuses again. Now the princess wants to know why. To the princess's question, the guest bravely replies that she is too beautiful to be a doll in her highness's collection. The heir to the throne is amused by Shay's answer, because according to the princess, one thing is one thing, and she also points out that the girl is the first one to so abruptly reject her proposal. The princess likes the guest's audacity and invites her to sit next to her, surprising her entourage. Having accepted the invitation, Shay sits next to the princess. Her highness decides it's time to find out the girl's name. The guest introduces herself as Titania Oberon. Tioles points out that there is no such surname in the lists of noble families of the empire. Pallas Nea continues her game of being a noble lady, and says that apparently her family is so insignificant that the ruler has no need to distinguish her from others. After listening to the guest, the princess says she likes riddles, and that so far there has been no riddle she couldn't solve. And she asks Nea not to let herself be solved too quickly, but to let the pleasure be prolonged. Miss Oberon feels flattered by such a compliment, but during the conversation, she realizes that her fiancé is very popular. She notes that she is very jealous, and maybe the princess will tell her who her husband really likes. The blonde at the table comments to Nea that she shouldn't call a man her husband, because the wedding hasn't taken place yet. The princess says she will take care of Miss Oberon, and that it will be love, but if the lady does something like that, she will be forgiven. Shay promises the princess to dispel the boredom, because Tioles has no idea how much the guest will cost her. She can entertain her. Lucius takes his fiancée after the reception, very tired but happy. The Duke is interested in how Shay finds the princess. The girl considers her an interesting person and tells her fiancé that Teol's the tyrant is interested in her. Shay explains to Schweden that her goal now is to make the princess lose interest in him, because if her highness is obsessed with Nea, then the duke's life will become much quieter. And moreover, establishing a friendship with the princess is very useful. Lucius, after listening to his fiancé, thinks that such a line of behavior is occurring. Shay is interested in which newspaper in this country is the most promising, the one that is popular among young people. She doesn't want to submit to the princess's power, and preferably with a greedy editor, and she offers to go to the editorial office. Lucius, after hearing Shay's plan, suggests an editorial office. He also realizes that the girl knows a lot about relationships between people, and knows how to use this knowledge, so she is most likely an aristocrat. A commoner would not come up with something like that. One thing, having heard such reasoning, the heroine finds herself in an awkward position, and she doesn't know what to do, and Lucius talks about it too calmly, so much so that she is even scared. Leaning against the window, the girl realizes that she knows nothing about She's origin in the original, because there was nothing about it in the book. She hopes that nothing will happen if the heroine continues to insist on memory loss. The main thing is that no one who knew She in the past appears. The carriage arriving at the estate is met by Theobald with the announcement that they have arrived. But the Duke signals the butler to remain silent and steps slightly aside, showing the view in the carriage. Inside the carriage is She, who fell asleep on the way. The reception with the princess was really exhausting. The butler, moved by what he saw, suggests calling Maynard. The Duke, after assessing the situation, refuses the offered help and says that he will carry the girl to the building himself. Carrying his fiancée, Lucius is surprised by the idea that in the month the girl has been here, she has turned his head, but if she stays with him, then everything could collapse, because the woman by his side is doomed to suffer. Putting She to bed, Lucius realized that he didn't want other men to touch her. These thoughts brought him no relief. As Lucius was about to get out of bed, She, asleep, suddenly grabbed the hem of his clothes and asked him not to leave the room. The Duke, being caught by the hem of his clothes, leaned over the girl without understanding what he was doing. He leaned even closer. The Duke's sudden impulse was interrupted by the butler's entry, who wanted to ask about the lady's well-being. Lucius was very embarrassed by Theobald's appearance, because he was almost caught in a sudden burst of feelings. A little later, in the office, the butler gave a report on a case that the Duke ordered to investigate a few days ago. It became known that the unknown man had appeared not long ago in the capital, visiting bars and cheap inns, and showed unusual interest in newspapers. The butler describes this man as having black hair, red eyes, and a tattoo on his face, since he has the mark of a warrior. Lucius suspects that this is an old enemy. The scar on his body, left in a battle long ago, immediately responded with pain. Theobald concludes the report by saying that the desert warrior was lurking around the mansion, not only on the day Maynard discovered him, but also, according to the innkeeper, this man read the newspapers every day, as if trying to find someone. In them, the Duke understands that he can find something out only if he sees him in person, but for now, he will not do this. For now, it's better to just observe. For some reason, he had a feeling that his entire insides were twisted at once. After sleeping well and stretching in bed in the morning, Shay noticed that she hadn't even changed clothes before going to bed. A very strange phenomenon. She falls asleep every time she goes somewhere. Approaching the mirror to remove her jewelry, the girl decided that today it was worth calling the maid she had drawn, and it would be advisable to announce it in front of everyone. After bathing and changing clothes, she went to get the painting and, enjoying the beautiful morning, she went to demonstrate her creation to the rest of the estate's inhabitants. When Lucius saw the girl, he did not share her wonderful mood. He didn't immediately understand why she was so happy. She shows the Duke her creation and asks if he likes the drawing. The servants entered the hall with breakfast. They were surprised that the girl got up so early. She greeted them and asked them to draw the curtains and close the door to show them something. Having placed her painting, she stood in front of it with her hand extended and saying a few words. She directed energy towards the canvas. The power of the drawing magician worked, and a cute maid appeared in front of the girl, and to the audience directly from the artist's canvas, but she seemed to be asleep. She placed her hand on the new maid's head and asked her to open her eyes. The girl obeyed her mistress. Upon opening her eyes, and as if waking from sleep, the newly created maid rushed with genuine joy to hug her mistress. She also said that she was born to serve she, and asks her to give her a name. All the men are surprised by the miracle that occurred. Lucius reacted more calmly to the situation, but the servants are very surprised. They had never seen anything like it. The lady calls the maid Juliet and instructs her to obey Lucius just like her mistress, and not to fight with Theobald and Maynard. The maid confirms that she understood everything. Lucius asks Juliet never to betray her creator, to obey only her orders. And the Duke also asks she to be careful, because she is unique and her value is very high. She smiles at such concern. From the Duke, she also learns that what she just did is called creation and is the prerogative of the gods. And if they find out about it, the girl will immediately become a target. After listening to Schweden and taking the information into account, the girl asks him when they can visit the editorial office of the previously chosen newspaper. Lucius doesn't really answer this question. The Duke remembers that he has news for she. The slave traders from that auction have been caught, and she will have to testify in court in 2 days. The girl realized that she remembered nothing of what happened there, but it was good that she wrote down her testimony in the first few days. After the trial, Lucius invites the girl for a walk in the pretty alley near the courthouse, and she happily accepts. 2 days later, the couple arrives at the court. Lucius explains to the man at the entrance that the lady has arrived to testify in a certain case. Upon entering, the Duke asks she to wait here until the clerks tell her to come in, and that he himself needs to prepare for the trial, and also that she doesn't have to worry because there is no magic inside the courthouse. She sits on the sofa to wait for time to pass, picks up a newspaper, and is pleasantly surprised to find that the number of rumors has decreased, which is a satisfactory result. A court clerk brings the girl a mask and asks her to put it on, after which she can enter the courtroom. Shay enters the courtroom and sees the slave traders kneeling, with their backs to her and facing the court. Upon raising her eyes to see who the judges are, the girl is very surprised. She was clearly not prepared for this. Lucius himself is dressed in a judge's robe behind the podium, and without betraying his emotions, observes what is happening. The court secretary announces that the next witness has arrived, and asks the madame to carefully observe the faces of the people in front of her. After studying the criminals, she says she recognizes them. When the court secretary asks if she is sure of the answer, the girl replies affirmatively. After the testimony of she and 2 other witnesses before her, a court decision is made to sentence the prisoners to death. The girl feels that everything was too fast. After leaving the meeting room, Shay returns to the sofa and hugs the pillow due to a surge of feelings. She is delighted with how the judge's suit suits Lucius, and this man even has a sexy brain. She feels like her heart is about to jump out of her chest. Having finished the court case, Schweden comes out and thanks Shay for waiting. He still offers to take a walk. She feels a little awkward, but agrees. The couple goes out into the alley. It is really very beautiful there. The girl is interested to know when the Duke managed to become a judge. Lucius is surprised that she didn't know. She replies that he didn't tell her this information. Lucius mistakenly assumed that she, like everyone else, was aware of his position. The girl was surprised while reviewing the information she knew about her fiancé. He is both Duke and leader of the Rentis Order of Chivalry and the president of the Supreme Court. Continuing the walk, the girl notices that the weather is beautiful and says she is happy. And she wonders if Lucius is happy. He doesn't know the answer to this question. He has never thought about happiness. From this answer from the Duke, she stops and demands that Lucius quickly say out loud that he is happy. The Duke does not repeat particularly emotionally after her. The fiancé is not happy with this state of affairs. She reaches out her hand and says that if it is difficult for Lucius to speak alone, then they can try together. She will say that he will be happy. The Duke never said he was happy, but he smiled looking at the girl, and it seemed to her that his mood had improved. The editor-in-chief of the publication selected by Lucius, whose surname was Bloomer, was running around his office looking for a camera and a coat. He received some kind of letter, whose content no one else knew. Having found his things, Bloomberg announced that there would be no reporting trips today, and that the team should follow him. Will there be a special issue? No, even super special. Shay sat on Schweden's lap. He fed her with a fork, as many loving couples do. Lucius calls the girl Bunny, and generally everything is very cute. Responding to the beautiful gesture, Shay calls the Duke Sunshine and offers to try a tasty piece. All this is a game for the public, or rather, for the newspaper reporters. The journalists immediately accepted Shay's invitation, as she promised them exclusive rights to all official reports and to interview the couple. But now the reporters, apparently, were very surprised to see that they couldn't even eat anything. Covering herself with a fan, she whispers to Lucius that it's worth changing locations, and that if the journalists come for an interview, their questions should be answered evasively. The Duke says he understands everything. The Duke's fiancée calls Juliet to follow her and enters the bathroom. Looking in the mirror, Shay is happy that everything is going like clockwork. She herself doesn't understand how you can be so perfect and beautiful, and all your ideas are successful. How can this be true? The girl is distracted from contemplating her reflection by a noise outside the window, and decides that this could be another attack. Juliet volunteers to check what is happening there. Because she was born to protect her mistress, Shay doesn't care much about the maid's arguments. When the maid opened the window, there was a man in a cloak behind the shutters. Anyone would say he looked suspicious. Shay thought that while the man was standing there, she needed to close the window. While the girl watched the stranger's behavior and thought about closing the window, something completely unexpected happened. The man in the cloak called her by her name. She was completely confused. The Duke called Nia from the room. She had been out for quite some time. The fiancé who came to the call tried to apologize, but Lucius noticed that she was too pale, as if she had seen a ghost, and he wondered if everything was all right. The girl whispers to Schweden to get into the carriage and talk there, preferably as soon as possible, away from the eyes and ears of the reporters. The Duke agrees and promises to accompany Nea. He puts his arm around the girl's waist, and she has the thought that Lucius began to touch her freely. Without flinching, "I wonder when this happened." Upon reaching the carriage, she tells the Duke that when she was in the ladies' room, a man called at the window outside and called her by her name. Schweden is glad that his fiancée was with Juliet, and then reminds the girl that she said she doesn't remember what happened to her. She confirms her words. It seems to the Duke that she is not trying to restore her memory. As if she doesn't want to remember, the girl sees no need to restore it if she already has a good life. Suddenly, the horse pulling the carriage rears up due to some danger. Lucius catches she, and to her question about whether it's a hired killer, he replies with a confident no. The Duke demands that the attacker identify himself. Otherwise, he will be arrested. The man ignores Schweden's demand and addresses she with the explanation that he broke her carriage. Because the girl said she hated them because it felt like being in a coffin. The stranger is sure that she was forced to travel in it. Looking at the girl, the man says they haven't seen each other in a long time. She is really not happy to see him. He calls the girl to return to her paradise. The Duke's fiancée explains that she doesn't know any she, and her name is Titania Oberon. And she is the only daughter of Viscount Oberon, but the boy doesn't believe her. He doesn't understand why Shay pretends not to know him. The girl demands that the attacker remove his hood. Otherwise, how can one know who he is if his face is absolutely invisible? The man agrees that the girl is right and removes his hood. He is trying to remind her that Shay liked his face. And if this is a joke, then it's not funny at all. She really couldn't have forgotten everything. The heroine examines the stranger. She notes that he is handsome, but the girl still doesn't understand who this person is. But Lucius recognizes him. This is Geisha, the first warrior of the Kun Desert people, the one who left a scar on the Duke's body, the only one who managed to hit Lucius. And now Schweden wants to know why Geisha appeared. So unexpectedly, Shay didn't understand everything Lucius said. She doesn't believe that this desert stranger can be stronger than the Duke. Calling Schweden loudly and an idiot behind she, Geisha turned to the girl and told her that if she wanted, she could stay here a little longer, but she shouldn't keep him waiting long, after which he would leave. She doesn't understand why Lucius simply let Geisha go. And it's interesting how close this man and villain number 4, who is suffering so much from the separation now, were. What happened between these two? Did they cross the desert together or fall in love there? These questions worried the girl. The broken carriage attracted She's attention. She didn't know how to get home now and directed this question to Lucius. The girl had to call the Duke's name a couple more times. It was as if he hadn't heard her. Lucius was watching the departing desert warrior and was completely disconnected from the outside world. She's voice calling him sounded as if through a pillow. Finally, the Duke paid attention to the girl, but didn't understand what she wanted from him. Shay repeats that the carriage is broken and that they had better return home as soon as possible. Lucius admits that his fiancée is right and says that in this case, he will have to call the balloon, but it hasn't been used for a long time. A huge airship, which was Lucius's personal property, flew to pick up the couple. It exceeded all of Shay's expectations. Upon returning home, Schweden called the reporters from the bribed editorial office to personally inform them about the attack. The journalist wondered if the attacker's identity was known, because they say he looked like a desert warrior. The next day, the editor-in-chief was absolutely delighted with the increase in sales. For the first time in the entire existence of the publishing house, the entire print run was sold out. She places a box of desserts in front of Bloomberg and asks him to give them to the employees. Since they worked hard and the entire print run was sold out, the editor wonders if the girl knows how to sell more. Bloomberg admires the gift, and she clarifies that if the newspaper decided to receive sponsorship from her, and not from the princess, if the publishing business goes uphill, this will only benefit she herself. The girl also asks the editor what he knows about lands, about fertile soils, and vast barren lands. If there is any place in Tirana where she can spend time with her family, something like a park. The editor suggests studying the land register. Imperial palace assets, having learned everything she wanted, she accompanies the editor-in-chief and promises to inform them first if anything happens. Bloomberg can only leave and wait for news. The girl is glad that everything is going well, and she can divert public interest from Lucius. But she is worried about what will happen after the appearance of the main character. In the book, Lucius goes through many trials before meeting the main character. Shayla's conscience does not allow her to simply run away. The heroine studies the territory near the house. She decided that it was worth calling a protector, but he is quite large, so he will need a lot of space. During a useful walk, something distracts her attention. In the courtyard, Lucius, bare-chested, is training. It was he who distracted she from searching for the place. The girl's blood rushes to her face. She saw the Duke shirtless for the first time, and she is ready to go crazy seeing those muscles. Forcing herself back from heaven to earth, she greets Lucius and tells him that she has finished working on the kitten, and she is looking for a place to summon it. The Duke, without paying attention to the girl's reaction, remembers that the kitten, according to his fiancée, is large. Schweden says he will ask Maynard to take the painting to the garden and asks the girl to wait a little while he changes. The painting still covers the girl's cheeks when the Duke leaves. Lucius returns to the garden with his entire retinue. Maynard brought a painting. Theobald heard the news while cleaning the pantry, and Juliet came looking for company. Everyone is interested in seeing the summoning. Shay removes the cover from the painting, and everyone sees a skillfully drawn black leopard on the canvas. The girl uses the already familiar action with her hand and tries to pull the leopard out of the scene. To wake it up, the next moment, Shay is thrown off the canvas by an unknown force. No one understands what happened. Lucius catches the girl. He is worried that everything is in order. Shay suddenly realizes that the more complex the image, the more energy is needed to revive it. The Duke asks Shay not to do this if it is so difficult, and that it is better to stop now, because she has become very pale. The girl does not listen to her fiancé's warnings and returns to the painting. She really needs this beast. She does everything possible to use drawing magic. Lucius stays slightly behind as backup because it can be dangerous. And now a huge, elegant kitty emerges from the canvas, which will protect she from enemies. That's what it was created for. She hugs her creation and asks her to obey her. It is a little difficult for the girl, but she does not want to order the beast to return to the picture again. The leopard does not like the nickname Kitty, but it must accept it because the name is the basis of the contract, and it cannot be changed, so the animal asks not to call it by its name or to do so as little as possible. All the servants are surprised. They have never seen animals talk. Kitty pretends not to hear their exclamations and, in general, it is hungry. Lucius offers Kitty a selection of various types of meat to choose from: veal, pork and lamb, as well as cooking methods. The beast states that marbled raw veal is suitable. Seeing her fiancé talking to the animal, Shay is completely delighted with the fact that Lucius can adapt to anything, to any circumstance. Shay says she wants to show Pussycath to the princess, but she cannot appear at the palace without an invitation. Lucius offers to IR with him to the morning meeting and sit in the waiting room. The meeting is unlikely to last long. Still, after the painting comes to life, Shay looks tired and Lucius suggests she go rest a little. The girl agrees that she should sleep a little. Before Shay can fully get up, she starts to fall and loses consciousness, which greatly scares Schweden. The man carried the unconscious girl to bed. She looks very sick, and does not regain consciousness. Lucius touches She's forehead. Her body is ice cold. The bed is heated. Because with such symptoms, medicines are useless. If she were awake, it would be possible to give her hot tea to raise her temperature. But alas, the Duke asks Theo to find some medicine. The butler leaves and asks in return not to leave She alone. Sitting next to the girl, the Duke tries to understand why her body is so cold. Because she created life, or because of the size of what she created. Maybe it depends on the complexity of the painting. All these thoughts swarm in her head. Lucius decides to write down his thoughts, because thoughts can be forgotten. The Duke was distracted from his notes by a girl who suddenly approached, which surprised Lucius. Addressing Shay, the Duke was at first glad that she had woken up. But looking at the girl again, he noticed that she was not herself, as if she were absent from reality. Being detached, Shay approached Lucius, and without saying anything or asking, kissed him. The man felt warmth coming from her lips. After the kiss, the strangest thing happened. The girl lost consciousness again in Lucius's arms. Carrying Shay back to bed, Schweden noticed that the girl's body temperature had returned to normal. Her fever was gone, and her body felt light. The Duke did not know that such a connection was possible between the drawing magician and the descendant of the sun god. In the morning, while combing her mistress's hair, Juliet cried and asked for forgiveness for not taking good care of She's sleep. And the mistress had dark circles under her eyes, the girl had a headache, and not wanting unnecessary noise. She told the maid that everything was fine. Shay, after the morning procedures, goes to breakfast and, to her delight, she finds Lucius there, who turns out to have been waiting for her and invites her to breakfast. When the girl sits down at the table, the Duke offers her a bagel with blueberry jam and mascarpone. Shay wonders how he knows. Lucius, spreading jam on a bagel, explains to Shay that he was watching her and noticed that she generally prefers it for breakfast. Seeing what is happening, Kitty pretends to have lost her appetite for a little sweetness at the table. Shay went to the imperial palace with Kitty while waiting for the end of the meeting. She reads the book The Prince and the Pauper. It's surprising that this book is in 2 worlds. The Beast becomes interested, and the girl tells him the plot. Loud voices distract the heroine from reading. The leopard is already ready to protect its mistress, but Shay stops Kitty with a gesture. She first wants to see for herself what is happening. 2 men came out of the office where the meeting was held, a count and a servant. The former was very indignant, and his exclamations echoed through the hall. The count was unhappy that the girl was involved in politics and, in his opinion, she should get married and stay at home. She went out to meet the men. The count expressed his displeasure with the fact that such dissolute girls were allowed into the palace, to which the girl said that he was very rude. The man completely exploded and began to shout at She that he was the great Count Baus. And how dare she talk to him like that? To which the girl calmly replied that she had never heard of such a thing. She reasons that if the count shouts like that, then apparently the Baus family does not know the basic rules of decency. And the count begins to scream even louder at those words. Unable to withstand Baus's screams and attacks, Shay called Kitty. The beast immediately ran towards the count and crushed him against the floor. The man, out of fear, called Kitty a monster, and the leopard asked Shay if it was possible to tear off the count's face. While Kitty's huge paw held Baus down, Shay warned the count that he must choose his words carefully. Otherwise, one day he would die because of it. Princess Tioles came to the scene of the conflict. She needed to know what happened and who was growling in the central hall of the palace. Her Highness sees a very interesting sight. The count lies on the floor, crushed by the beast, and Titania, noticing the princess, bows as if nothing had happened. Tioles examines the animal carefully and with interest, and asks Nea whose creature this is. At the same time, she praises her for teaching the count a good lesson. Miss Oberon, stroking and praising the leopard, says that this is her pet, and that she brought it to show it to Her Highness, and if the princess really liked Kitty, then Nea can look for and bring another animal. The princess decides to end the meeting without hearing the objections of the other participants, and then invites Titania for a walk in the garden to her personal palace. The girls go out into the garden, where many beautiful flowers grow. In the conversation, the princess expresses her admiration for the fact that Nea completely won one of the newspapers over to her side, and managed to drag Lucius into this adventure. Titania is happy to have surprised Tioles, but asks to save the praise for later, because she is about to leave the princess in shock. It is spring outside. So many flowers have bloomed in the garden that the princess chooses one of them and says it will be an excellent decoration for Nea's hair. Having received the flower, Shay asks if the princess is dressing her up like a doll, but Teol says that this flower suits the girl well and maybe, from now on, she will be called Titania. The girls walk through the Sita's labyrinth. The princess leads Shay further and further away from the palace, pretending to be lost. And it seems to her that they accidentally entered the greenhouses. Upon learning about the greenhouses, she remembers that this is the territory of the #1 villain, Princess Christiana Peridot. This thought makes the girl uncomfortable. When the girls entered the greenhouse, Christiana only greeted the princess, but Titania flinched upon seeing the princess. Handing the rose to Christian, the princess says she wants to name this variety Titania. The princess guesses that this is the name of the lady next to Her Highness. There is nowhere to go. And bowing to the princess replies that everything will be done as Her Highness wishes. Inviting Teols out of the greenhouse, she is interested in how Lady Peridot is related to flowers. The princess explains that the princess is the head of the Imperial Botanical Department, and ordinary people cannot enter the greenhouses without the permission of the person in charge. Because there are dangerous plants in the greenhouses, Shay remembers that she knows the #1 villain. She is not a fan of Lucius, but considers him the key to her happiness. She is very self-confident, and poisonous needles were often used in the novel. So you have to be careful. Upon returning to the palace, Teols asks Nea when her engagement, too, and Lucius will take place, because the princess has heard Titania call her fiancé many times, but never about an engagement, and she wants to offer her garden for the ceremony. After hearing the princess, Shay realized that she had voiced a problem she had already thought about. The girl does not immediately accept Teols's proposal, emphasizing that it would be strange to make such a decision alone, and that it is worth discussing with Lucius. Her Highness does not notice Titania's evasive answer and calls her very attentive. Shay smiles sweetly at the compliment. The princess is about to leave. Shay notices that the situation has become much calmer than before and decides to stop the princess with an unexpected request. Nea puts on a sweet face and asks innocently if Her Highness would happen to want to give her an engagement gift, although for that she will need a card. Teol says that for the first time in her life, she knows a person who demands a gift from her, because she was going to present it when the time for the ceremony comes, and also that Nea is the first lady who asked for land as a gift. Teols takes the guest to the maps. She clarifies that there is almost no good land, but suddenly something catches her eye. Shay needs barren and ownerless land. Pointing to a Vershell on the map, Shay explains to the princess that she wants to build a park on this land, where all citizens can have a lot of fun. Teols agrees to give the land to Titania if she goes hunting with the princess. Shay doesn't know how to ride a horse, which she informs Teols about, but invites Nea to saddle up her cat. The girl says she will think about it and says goodbye to the princess, finally asking her to stop making fun of Lucius. When the guest leaves, the princess reflects on their conversation. Since it was random, there is no way Nea could have learned about the secret of the imperial family associated with a Vershell, which means that the choice of land was random without any hidden meaning. While having tea, Lucius listens to She's story about the time she spent with the princess and about the invitation to marry. Upon hearing this, the Duke says that it is worth practicing dancing if the girl intends to accept the invitation. She does not understand how the house and the dance are related. The Duke explains that after the house, the princess always holds a reception. A big fire is lit in the middle of the main courtyard. They dance and laugh heartily. Lucius insists that they must go together. She admits that she doesn't know how to dance properly, but since the mansion has been quite quiet these days, she can go out and practice while extending her hand to Schweden. In the estate courtyard, Lucius asks she to do him the honor and take his hand, even though the girl herself offered to practice. While waiting, she began to tremble and her body grew warm. During the dance, the Duke explains that avoiding eye contact while dancing is extremely disrespectful, so the gaze must be directed at the partner. At some point, the man and the girl find themselves very close to each other, so close that their lips almost touch. And it is at this moment that Lucius says thank you. He expresses gratitude for all the moments that would not have happened without Shay, for the fact that she changed his life so much. Lucius says that meeting Shay is his only blessing. The girl replies by saying that there is still a lot of time left, so all this is just the beginning, and she always keeps her promises, and everything will be even better. It was already getting dark, and the couple danced for quite a while in the courtyard. Sitting in his office, Lucius recalled the moment he almost kissed Shay. He restrained himself, but for some reason his heart ached so much that he tried to stop thinking about it. But it didn't work. Theo arrived and noticed that the gentleman had many worries. Lucius invited the butler to the table, accepting the invitation. Theobald noticed that since the lady appeared, the gentleman had become happier, and he no longer changes rooms every 2 hours. Schweden admits that she has become a salvation for him. The day of the hunt arrived. She went out in a beautiful outfit, but although she walked with a proud look, her worries wouldn't let her go. After all, a hunt is a hunt. Will everything be all right? Lucius and Pussycat met the girl near the harnessed carriage. The Duke appreciated how well the hunting suit suited her. Before letting the girl go hunting with the princess, Lucius gives her a special whistle, which is used during special operations, so that only experienced warriors hear its sound, and promise to stay close. Getting into the carriage, Shay asks the Duke not to worry and promises to keep her eyes open and take care of herself. Tioles meets Shay and Kitty on the outskirts of the forest. The girls exchange compliments on their appearance, and the princess does not deprive the beast of her attention. The cat announces that it smells something sinister. Nea tries to control her pet, and Her Highness praises the animal's sense of smell. After lightly scolding the beast, Shay feels that it smells very strange. Tioles says that they have finally been brought, but Shay still doesn't understand who they are. A cage with some people sitting in it was delivered in a cart. The princess explains that these are the pigs they will hunt today, but no matter how much she looked, she saw ordinary people. Realizing that the princess would not hunt innocent people, the heroine felt enlightened by the premonition that the girl shared with Tioles that these people were criminals. The princess confirms that all these people are guilty of the same crime. They sexually assaulted a group of women. On the way to the hunting ground, the princess met a group of women. They had nothing to do with the hunt. This surprised Tioles, which means they were victims. Madame Adales appeared in the clearing announcing that all preparations had been completed. Upon hearing this and learning that Nia and Cientina knew each other, the princess decided that the night would go with Titania. Cientina tried to object. Tioles' appearance and mood changed drastically. She is dissatisfied with Cientina's behavior and does not remember ever allowing her to be objected to. Madame Adal bows humbly and apologizes for her behavior. She promises that this will never happen again. The rapists line up at the starting position, and the princess gives them the opportunity to choose their fate. The first option is to start hunting them, and if they manage to get out of the forest, then they will not die. Maybe they will win. Freedom. The second option is that Tioles offers the criminals to atone for their guilt by saying that they will immediately ask for forgiveness from their victims, and they will accept suffering a deserved punishment. Then they will avoid an unenviable fate. They must answer for such a crime. The bandits are not going to apologize. They shout that the princess will regret letting them go, and they run away. The criminals are sure that nothing will happen to them. Seeing what is happening, Shay initially thinks they are stupid, but then finds them disgusting. Her Highness is sure that if you don't kill these bastards, then everything will repeat itself. And that's why people like her are needed, since the criminals used force to harm others. So, if you pay them back in kind, declares the princess. The open hunt. Shay admires the princess. If the heroine had known that Tioles was so magnificent, she would have read the novel to the end, and not halfway through. Cientina, hearing Shay's admiration, reminds the girl that she herself said her life was in danger. And if she had refused to come, then the princess would have understood everything. But no, Nia got into the thick of it. After hearing this, Shay wonders if Madame Adals is worried about her. After such a declaration from Titania, Cientina begins to defend herself, as if she were worried about the captain, because he will worry about the fiancé, and Nia herself causes no concern. Miss Oberon assures that recently the number of threats in her life has significantly decreased, and she herself is no longer so weak. Besides, Kitty and the amulets are with her. After listening to Nia, Cientina notes that all this is fine, but don't forget to look around. And with these words, she cuts off the branch that Shay almost hit. A sound was heard. Titania became interested in it. Adales explains that apparently one of the criminals was caught, but it was better if the lady didn't look. Shay takes Cientina's words as a challenge and immediately takes Kitty out of her place, pointing in the direction. The beast runs towards the sound. Upon reaching the source of the sound, the heroine sees a rather interesting sight before her. The princess stands before the criminal with a shot in the knee. Her hunt was not in vain. Blood stains cover the ground around him. Cientina arrived in time. Both girls become observers. They stand behind the wounded women's backs. They shouldn't approach yet. The shot criminal begs for mercy. The princess clearly has no intention of letting him go. She says that maybe the bandit himself heard the pleas for mercy. Tioles reminds the bandit of the desperate pleas of the women, their requests for mercy, and also that he only laughed at their pleas and said that for them that is mercy. The offended and angry women no longer suppress their anger. They already had stones in their hands that flew towards the rapist. They did not hide their feelings and shouted that his vile soul would go to hell. The criminal begged for mercy and tried to hide from the stones flying towards him. But this did not help much. He huddled on the ground and could not hide from the women he had offended. Observing the people's execution, she thought that this was an illegal trial, but that it would be impossible to carry it out in any other way. Having vented their anger, a group of women thank the princess for saving them and taking revenge. They hug her with tears of relief. Tioles hugs and takes pity on those who deserve it. Shay, seeing the princess's act, is convinced of her true generosity. The girl has no words to describe Her Highness's generosity. Shay thinks that serving a person like the princess is probably a great honor. Cientina confirms that accompanying Her Highness is a great pride for the whole family at once. And moreover, she says that the princess will become a beautiful empress and a brave warrior. Before parting again, Tioles offers water to Titania. The lady accepts and is pleasantly surprised that the water is still cold. Could it be that magic was used here? The princess asks if Nea has anything she would like to do, dreams or goals. Shay says she would like to live happily ever after, and that she has worked hard for it. Tioles hints that it is worth gaining the favor of those in power to live happily ever after. Shay doesn't know how to avoid this conversation. But then, Cientina draws her sword. She realizes the danger. The heroine feels some relief. As unbelievable as it sounds, it was at the right moment. Hired assassins appear in front of the girls. They say they have come to kill the tyrant Tioles. The princess calls them jesters. There are only 5 of them. Shay understands that only 5 people could not have come to deal with the princess. She asks Kitty to find the rest. The black leopard shoots off like an arrow. The princess wonders if the animal really knows how to get rid of all kinds of reptiles. Shay, satisfied with her pet, replies that it had special training. One of the mercenaries runs towards the princess with a bare sword. He threatens Her Highness with depriving her of life. Tioles is not afraid at all. She only asks Titania to stay behind her and not move. Tioles has a whip in her hands, which she handles perfectly, and with the help of such an unusual weapon, she effortlessly confronts the bandits. Seeing how the princess behaves in this situation, Shay is completely delighted. She doesn't know how someone can be so incredible. While the girl enthusiastically watches Her Highness, a loaded crossbow is aimed at her from the bushes. A hidden mercenary waits for the right moment to shoot. The following events happened literally in an instant. Kitty found the hidden assassin and didn't even let him utter a word. With a leap, the beast took care of the danger, but the mercenary's finger was already on the trigger. And in a moment of fright, he fires an arrow. The fired arrow quickly approaches the unsuspecting Shay. At the last moment, Lucius appears in front of the girl and intercepts the arrow. He promised to stay close and thank God. The man was not late. Shay thanks her boyfriend for his help and admits that she was not careful enough because she thought the mercenaries only needed the princess, and that's why she heard suspicious sounds at the last moment. While the girl praises the cat for capturing the scoundrel, the Duke passes the caught arrow to the approaching Cientina. He suspects that Count Baus has fallen off the pedestal. On the arrow shaft is the drawing of a flower, which confirms the assumption about Count Baus's involvement. Cientina gives the arrow to the princess. Having studied it, Tioles asks to tell Princess Peridot that she will soon have new food for the flowers. The hunt ends here, and a fun vacation awaits everyone. Lucius carries the girl in his arms away from the festivities and asks her to have a little patience, because they are almost there. Shay doesn't understand why she has become less resilient in recent days. Still, the girl cannot stand it and falls asleep in the Duke's arms. She is too exhausted from such a busy day. Having carried Shay to bed, Lucius sits down next to her. He never thought that she would so easily help him find the meaning of life. She is a woman of fireworks, bright, loud, and explosive. The Duke is surprised by the idea that if she were a little calmer, if she had the power that was taken from the descendants of the sun god 300 years ago, the so-called gaze that gives the ability to see the future would make sense. After the hunt, Count Charles Bose was sentenced to exile on a deserted island. But she ignored this information, and now it was time to enjoy shopping. The clerk could not tell the girl what to choose because everything suited her. So Shay notices that the pearls are shining slightly. The clerk explains that all the highest quality pearls were bought by Princess Christiana Peridot. Upon hearing such information, the heroine takes off her pearl jewelry. She cannot wear jewelry worse than the princesses, having clarified whether the stones in the other rings are better than Peridot's. And having received an affirmative answer, she buys everything in stock and asks for the jewelry to be sent to her home. Entering the store with fans, the girl noticed the building across the street. There was a for sale sign on it. After consulting with the saleswoman for information and learning that the building would be sold at auction the next day, she went home. Arriving by carriage at the building for sale, Shay dreams of opening her own boutique. Because among all the young ladies from noble families, there is a rule that says not to wear the same dress twice. The girl asked Juliet if she liked this idea. The maid was completely delighted with her mistress's genius. Shay wants to call the brand Titania and try to persuade Madame to become a co-owner of the business. Because in the original story, Madame took a long time without a good start to become famous. In She's dreams, the heroine herself and Madame instantly became famous. They became rich and fulfilled their plans. Juliet sees a small tea house next to the building and pulls the owner out of her dream country with an offer to go there. Having accepted the maid's proposal, she studied the tea house. Despite the deterioration of the exterior, the entire interior was illuminated by sun rays. And it was quite cozy. A loud voice at the counter attracted the girl's attention. The owner of the tea house and Lady Peridot were at the counter. Both ladies greeted Miss Oberon and returned to their argument. The owner shouted that she would not sell the tea house, and the princess insisted that debts were accumulating in such a place. And sooner or later, the owner would give up. Unable to bear it, the old woman placed a cup of drink in front of Christiana and told her to drink. Or leave here. But Peridot decided to leave, saying she couldn't wait long. Juliet studies the menu and really wants to place an order, but Shay asks her to wait. She considers the princess's behavior indecent because you can't do that. And it seems she has completely tortured her grandmother. Shay approaches the owner of the tea house. She tells her that she is impressed because for the first time she sees a person who is able to stand up to Lady Peridot. The girl addresses the old woman personally, which surprises her greatly. The grandmother shares her past with Shay. When she was young, she could even shout at aristocrats because she was a nanny. Everything becomes clear to the girl. In Tirana, nobility may not follow strict rules of communication with their closest servants. The girl wants to know if there is any reason why the owner refuses to sell her tea shop, even in such difficult times. At first, the grandmother pretends not to understand what they are talking about, nor the special reasons for keeping this place. But then she decides to tell the truth. The grandmother admits that at her age no one invites her out anymore, and in the tea house she can at least look at the young boys. And handsome ones. Shay is very amused by the reason given by the tea shop owner. She definitely didn't expect this. Everything turns out much more interesting than she thought. Now she likes her grandmother even more. The girl thinks that if everything is left as it is, then the grandmother and her tea house will become prey for Peridot. Shay offers the old woman to sell her the tea house, and then the girl will pay off her debts. But the grandmother suspects that the lady is colluding with the princess. The heroine expected such a reaction, but she has another idea. Shay finds Theobald working in the garden. She invites him on a date, but the butler refuses with a smile. He believes he is too old to date and can only prune the bushes. The girl is a little confused. Her plan might fail if Theo doesn't agree. She thought everything was settled because Theobald is a true gentleman. Shay decides to try again. She tells the butler that there is a grandmother whom Shay wanted to introduce him to, not forgetting to mention that she worked as a nanny for aristocrats and runs a tea shop, a grandmother named Tevi. Upon learning the name of the person the lady wants to introduce him to, Theobald says they have known each other for a long time, and that maybe he should go to the meeting, not forgetting to tell the butler that a villain wants to take Tevi's tea shop away. She exhales, although her intentions were not entirely pure. Everything worked out. The heroine chooses an outfit, and the maid brings her a new cap to complete the look. Lucius, who came during the fitting, says that the girl looks very good in it. It has been several days since the Duke was seen. The Duke's appearance was unexpected, but Shay is very happy with his appearance, and she doesn't hide it. The girl, without hesitation, runs to Lucius with an exclamation that she missed him because they haven't seen each other in a long time. But the thought of whether this is an excess crossed Shay's mind. To avoid showing discomfort, the girl calls Schweden with Theobald. On the way, she tells the Duke about her plan to reunite the butler with a wonderful grandmother. Theobald, buying a bouquet for the meeting, remembers how 40 years ago he worked as a gardener for a family, and Tebai was his nanny. After the family's bankruptcy, all the servants fled and their connection was interrupted. And now it is even surprising that they meet again. Lucy and she watch Theo from the carriage. For the girl, everything seems incredibly exciting. She wonders what Lucius would feel if he met his beloved after 40 years. The Duke replied that perhaps long-forgotten feelings would not erupt again, but he would be delighted to celebrate such a reunion. A man in an elegant suit and a bouquet of flowers arrived at the tea house to meet an old friend. While still on the threshold, Theobald addressed the hostess by name. Tabby immediately recognized the former gardener and was simply in shock, because nothing was known or said about him. Both old people were very happy about this meeting. They exchanged compliments and recalled their past lives. She and Lucius are standing at the door, getting a little carried away by the observation. The girl smiles with joy, but the Duke is a little confused. Getting emotional from the memories, Theobald could not hold back tears. Tabby wiped them away with a smile. After making sure that Theo and Tabby are fine, Shay whispers to Lucius that maybe it's time to quietly retire, and that there is also a place she wants to visit with him. The heroine takes the Duke to the auction. On the way, she talks about plans for the store. Lucius offers to help with the purchase of the building, but Shay refuses his help because she has her own money. The girl reminds Schweden that they are only pretending to be a couple, and that's why she intends to pay for the building purchase herself. They announce the lot that she needs, and she gets distracted from the conversation. Lucius watches the girl during the auction. He thinks that setting clear boundaries would have brought him relief before, but for some reason not now. The price for the lot started at 300 million. She gradually exceeded the price until a stranger appeared and increased the amount to 500 million. The rivals began to outbid until she announced the amount of 900,009,000 gutas, which is exactly the amount the building was sold for. Schweden is not sure if it is worth spending so much money on an old building, but she assures him that everything is in perfect order and that the investment will double. After the auction, Lucius invites the girl to rest. She wanted to inspect the purchased building as a souvenir before starting to restore it, but she did not know that she would be so tired that lately she again lacks stamina. The Duke invites she to lie down, and in response to her objections that there is no pillow here, and that it is impossible to lie down without this object, Lucius kindly offers to borrow his knees and lie down in a way that is comfortable for the girl. In the greenhouse, the maid informs the princess about the results of the auction. She apologizes for not being able to buy the house, because the redhead bitch raised the last bid by 200 million, and the prepared funds were not enough for the rescue. Peridot cannot allow Titania to get away with it, because she will continue to stand in the princess's way. The frightened maid nods to the princess. She agrees that Peridot's actions are completely correct, and in general, the redhead boasted about her wealth in a very disgusting way, and everything was very repulsive. Krishna praises the maid and invites her to have a cup of tea. Isn't the servant tormented by thirst? The princess said all this while slightly narrowing her eyes. The maid cautiously accepts a glass of tea from Peridot, because usually after such snacks many servants disappear. She hopes until the end that this will not happen to her. The servant hoped in vain for a good outcome. Without turning her head, Christian finally reprimands the maid that one cannot talk about a second chance, since she failed the first task. After getting rid of the maid, the princess leans back in her chair and thinks aloud how to give up what she desires so much. With a pen and notebook in her hands, she is indescribably delighted to arrive at her personal land, the one she received from the princess. The girl did not think that the land would be very empty. There were not even plants. Lucius remembers She's words about the amusement park, but he is interested in why Evershell, the fiancé, chose this land like this. The Duke does not understand why the girl did not turn to him with a question about the land for construction. Having found a branch, he draws Evershell and the surrounding lands, namely Rude, Haz Avil, and tells She that he is their owner. The man explains that for convenience, he introduces himself as the Duke of Schweden, but his full title is Lucius of Schweden, Duke of Schweden, as well as Lord of Rude, Haz and Avil, and also ruler of Mackerton. Lucius says that Macarton is a coastal city in the south, which is called the city of gambling. In Xi's mind, he is a major beyond imagination. The Duke continues to speak. He promises to transfer the rights to manage the gambling houses to the girl when she becomes his wife. The Duke, after observing Xi, believes that she will manage the playgrounds much better, and maybe she will take this business to a new level. The girl is happy to have this opportunity for herself. She clarifies if this is really a wedding gift. Lucius offers to gift the casino in honor of the engagement. Shaylo thinks about it. She has to give something, so she first decides to sketch something and think about returning the gift later. Upon returning home, the girl collapsed on the bed. The day was difficult, but for some reason she didn't sleep a wink. Deciding that since she couldn't sleep, it would be better to take a walk, the girl went out into the courtyard. And during the walk, she tried to think what to give her fiancé for their engagement. It's great when your future husband is rich, but this makes choosing a gift very difficult. Shay is distracted from her thoughts by an unexpected night encounter. Lucius approaches the girl, who also couldn't sleep, and decided to take a walk. The couple continues their night walk together, walking next to the Duke. Shay cannot understand why her heart is beating so fast and why she is afraid. They stopped. The girl doesn't understand why Lucius is looking at her so intently. Maybe it's because she is very beautiful. The man looking at Shay again says she is beautiful, and it is true. The girl tries to control herself. She didn't expect such words. Shay tries to laugh awkwardly. Lucius decides to make a revelation. He tells Shay that before, during those walks, mages showered him with gifts, and every time Schweden had to refuse and look for the ladies who sent them to return everything. Because there could be bribes, but with Shay's appearance in his life, everything stopped. The Duke calls the girl his salvation. She objects because he was definitely the one who saved Xi. Lucius, who brought her closer, said that if this had happened before, he would have needed the girl's consent. But as a souvenir, she recently stole something from him and intends to return it. After these words, the Duke gently hugs the girl's head with both hands and kisses her on the forehead. Shay is very lost. She doesn't know at all how to behave in such a situation. It's as if she's nailed to the spot where she was. The girl, coming out of her stupor, leaves her spot, leaving the Duke alone in the night. Not having time to take Shay's hand, Lucius watches her, as if wanting to make sure she couldn't escape. Fortunately, Tevi agreed to sell the building to Xi, but on the condition that the new 3-story building would have a tea room on the ground floor, and that the grandmother would be the owner of the place. With the help of palace mages sent by Her Highness, the building construction work progressed quickly. Not long ago, Xi managed to get permission from the emperor to build an amusement park. Everything worked like clockwork. Sitting in Ti's house, the new owner thought about how to distribute the floors. She planned to give the 3rd floor to the lady and staff, and use the 2nd as an office. Suddenly, she was overcome by the memory of the night kiss on the forehead, and she was completely lost. She didn't understand why Lucius did this, and what she felt at that moment. Realizing Xi's condition, Tevi asked why she was so upset about a man. Tavi expresses the opinion that you can simply take advantage of a man and leave him. But in general, it is not clear why you should worry so much, because a young lady like Xi can seduce any man. Sad about such conversations, Xi tried to understand why Lucius kissed her. She had several theories about it, and one of them was that he liked the girl. But this made no sense. There are men who cannot cross the line. The novel the girl finished is called The Wedding of the Main Character, with the descendant of the sun god. There are 100 times more descriptions of the relationship between the main characters than descriptions of the beautiful villain number 4. Shay is completely annoyed. Tabby scolds the girl that with such a mood, no girl can manipulate men. Therefore, if Shay came to T's house to worry, then it is better for her to leave here. And therefore, Tabby unceremoniously pushes the girl towards the door. Shay is extremely indignant at this attitude, but Tabby is adamant. Her grandmother sends her outside to look at the sun, admire handsome men, and not sit around worrying about men. Before the store opening, Shay, following etiquette rules, writes an invitation letter. Although she feels uncomfortable and thinks the guest will not come, the day of the brand launch party arrived. After checking the food, the decoration, and making sure everything was perfect, Shay was ready for the reception. The lady is very worried. As long as everything goes well, Shay reassures her. She is sure that everything will go well. Princess Tials and Madame Adales appear at the reception. Titania is very happy about their arrival. She invites the guests to look at the outfits. If they like something, then Nea will give it to Her Highness and Cientina. Tioles tells Titania that she likes her more and more because she has a charm that Peridot lacks. Shay appreciated the fact that the popularity of the clothing brand worn by the princess will definitely increase. After all, the princess is very generous. Even knowing that she is being used, Tioles happily allows Nea to do this. Cientina is looking at a suit with magnificent suspenders. Noticing Adales's interest in the costume, Titania invites Cientina to take it. Because if such a wonderful gentleman wears this elegant suit, the hostess will be very happy. Cientina asks not to flatter her because it's pointless, but she is sure otherwise. Hugging Adales by the hand, the girl praises the knight's muscles and flatters that it must have been difficult to develop those muscles. Cientina moves away from Miss Oberon. At that moment the princess approaches. She notices that Titania and Adales get along well, so much so that Her Highness even gets jealous. Shay offers to choose a suit for Tioles, in which case, the princess wants to wear a Titania suit right here. In her thoughts, Nia is very happy about such a free advertisement. Entering the hall, Shay is glad that her expectations have been met. A lot of people had gathered. One thing bothered the girl a little. None of the visitors dared to speak to her. Two girls approached Titania. They asked if the lady remembered them. They mentioned the fan shop. Shay remembered. She gave the two girls a couple of fans and a boutique. It was an impulsive act for her, so she didn't remember it immediately. The girls decided to approach Shay to thank her for making their little dream come true. Congratulating the lady on the brand launch, the girls want to leave. Shay stops them and asks if they could be friends. Miss Oberon froze, awaiting an answer. During that moment, she remembered something. The girl never had real friends in her past life. It's not that she wanted to, but approaching someone with an intention was the only way to talk to them. Moreover, in the real world, a girl always lacked money. So even going to the cinema or a cafe with someone was an unaffordable luxury. The girls stop and introduce themselves by name. Shay is very happy. She doesn't know many people in the capital, but now she has two friends. Upon returning home, Lucius discovers that she went to the party without telling him anything, but left an invitation. Theobald believes the Duke should go by invitation. Besides, the butler already has everything prepared. Schweden reasons aloud that it will look strange if he goes to the Kuum, even though His Majesty said it would serve as a distraction. The Korm. These are harsh competitions where participants die one after another. Once every 3 years, all the desert tribes hold a traditional martial arts festival. On a certain day, all the desert clans gather in one place. Lucius says that if he leaves, he will worry. Theobald assures the Duke that everything will be fine with she. But Lucius smiles because Theo didn't understand. He will worry about himself when he is without she. The Duke finds out if the person he wanted to meet has arrived. Theo confirms her arrival and says she is waiting in the hall. Lucius doesn't understand why she wasn't invited to the room. The butler smiles. The guest is very persistent. The guest he was waiting for was Tevi, the owner of a tea shop, whom she introduced Theobald to. Going downstairs, Lucius apologizes for the wait and for having to entrust such a difficult task to his grandmother. The old woman assures that although she is old, she still cooks the pot. Tebiona Mew has a phenomenal memory. Theobald and Tebiona worked undercover in their youth. Theobald was called the Lubin of Information and Tebiona was called the Bione of Memory. Shaking hands, they parted after some incident. By an incredible coincidence, Shai brought them together. Lucius has only one request for Tabby. He asks to know everything about the drawing mages. Much about them is covered by a veil of secrecy. But if Tabby and Theo work together, they might be able to find something. Maybe they will, to be able to understand why Shay becomes cold when she uses magic. The princess has already changed clothes and wonders if Lucius will show up at the party. Shay herself doesn't know if the Duke will come. She doesn't want to insist, because until now she has been pursued by countless psychopaths. So if he shows up at the party, it would be difficult for him. The girl is actually matched. I'm glad he's not here. From the conversation about the Duke, Tioles and Nea were distracted by a girl's scream. Shay recognized the screaming girl as the president of Lucius's fan club, Macy Ammonton, but the second girl could not be recognized. The stranger, in response to Macy's accusations, declares with a smile that in war all means are good. The dark-haired girl mocks Macy because she managed to get the towel Lucius used to wipe off sweat. Seeing this performance, Shay thinks it's a pathetic sight. Maybe she should intervene and stop her. Shay addresses Macy. She is interested in what Lady Ammonton is doing here. The fan club president is confused. She doesn't know how to behave in this situation. The heroine is amused by Macy's reaction. She asks Amontin, with a bit of mockery, why she didn't expect to see Miss Oberon at her own celebration, or if she shouldn't listen to this conversation. Without giving Macy anything to answer, the stranger steps forward, enthusiastically calling out to Shay, the same thief who managed to steal the heart of the Duke of Schweden, and the mysterious fairy who appeared in the capital. Having interrupted the stranger's enthusiastic speech, Titania asks her to introduce herself. The girl calls herself Nania Serpenter. Shay repeats the name to remember, so Nania is delighted again, and she asks the lady to repeat it again. Shay fulfills the girl's request, and then asks what kind of towel Nania was talking about. Nania looks at Shay subserviently. Since Titania is the Duke's beloved, she apparently wants to return the towel. She usually doesn't refuse such treasures, but if Nia really needs it, so be it. She will give it away. Shay asks Nania if she really thinks that if Lucius finds out that the girl collects towels and buys her hair, then he will like it. Approaching the girl, Titania calls her behavior violence against the Duke. And if she thinks she is not hurting him, she is deeply mistaken. Having finished with Nania, Shay warns that from now on, if anyone sends assassins after Naya or chases Lucius, Shay gestures with her hand calling Kitty and expects her to explain clearly. Returning to her conversation with Nania, Shay says that the girl should get rid of her entire collection as soon as possible. It seems Nania didn't understand what Shay said. She is delighted once again, but only by how beautifully Miss Oberon speaks. Shay's throat is even dry from the monologue and the eager behavior. She takes a glass of champagne to wet it. At least the princess, as well as Nania, shifted their attention from Lucius to Shay. Suddenly, Nania asks the lady for permission to take the glass she was drinking from. Going outside, the heroine doesn't understand why she feels so bad. In fact, she doesn't tolerate alcohol well. After drinking champagne out of thirst, the girl didn't think she would get so drunk. Apparently, the original Shay also doesn't tolerate alcohol. The girl thought that going outside would make her feel better, but for some reason, she doesn't feel better. Shay feels like she is losing the ability to think coherently. A desert warrior appears around the corner and tells Shay that she shouldn't have drunk the champagne because it was poisoned. The girl can no longer stand. She can't believe she is dying. Her body completely stops listening. She can't believe Geisa poisoned her. The warrior warns Shay that if she moves, the poison will spread faster. He says he just saw someone pour poison into her glass. Shay can't believe Kaisa stood by watching her being harassed and did nothing about it. The desert man explains that the poison is not fatal. Most likely it is only paralyzing, and the girl soon won't even be able to scream. When Shay asks who poisoned her, the man doesn't want to answer. Sitting next to the girl, the man is not going to tell her about the poisoner. If he does, Shay will most likely run away from him again and go towards the blonde one. But she doesn't remember who this man is at all. The warrior says he will wait until she is completely numb, because then her abilities will also be sealed, and the girl will be easier to carry. She notices that, unlike Lucius, this man is cold as paper. Schweden appears just in time. He literally snatches she from the desert warrior's hands and hugs her protectively. Even by touching her hands, the girl feels the Duke's warmth. Keiksa clearly did not expect the Duke to appear. She even managed to get a little scared. She tries to apologize, but Lucius calms her down by telling her that everything is fine. The girl feels that the Duke has chased away her fear. It's amusing for a desert warrior to see the woman he thought was the love of his life finding comfort in another man's arms. Lucius will not forget what Keiksa did to him in battle. But the warrior Geiksa, whom the Duke knows, was not like this. He would never allow his beloved to suffer harm. If the man is really who he says he is, then he and she should have the same companion mark. Lucius asks where the warrior has this mark. Keiksa does not consider this important. He tells the Duke that he has no idea about the feelings tearing the warrior's heart apart. He is upset that he cannot take the girl with him and promises that he will never give up. The party in honor of the opening of Titania's workshop ended when the princess, upon learning of Miss Overton's condition from Lucius's mouth, decided to complete it herself. Fortunately, there were no tranquilizers in the champagne that the guests drank. Helping she recover, Lucius told her that she should get married as soon as possible, that the engagement would take place at the palace, but it is better not to delay the wedding, because as soon as she enters the Schweden family, the threats to her life will disappear, significantly reduced. Shay is thinking. It seemed to her that she had worried enough about security. She couldn't even imagine that this would happen. And now it is unknown what else they will do. Lucius convinces the girl to eat. It's as if his overprotective mode has been activated, but Shay doesn't want to. She tries to change the subject of food, reasoning aloud if they really wanted to kill her. Then why did they add a paralyzing agent and not just poison? The Duke suspects that in this case, no one would have accepted the possibility of murder. If she had stumbled and fallen, this would have been considered an unfortunate accident. That said, he continues to feed the girl. She assures Lucius that she has already eaten and that everything is fine. The paralysis has passed and she feels excellent. Lucius breaks the bread and explains to the girl that even if she took the antidote, a small amount of the paralyzing agent might remain in the body. And this is not entirely safe. She claims that the Duke is fussing over her like a mother hen. And Theo, who has arrived, confirms that this may be the case. A knock on the door interrupts the conversation. Maynard asks permission to open the door, and a surprising sight opens up before she. Behind the door are mountains of flowers, the same roses named after Titania. And gifts. Maynard reports that all this is a gift from His Highness. The girl takes the envelope. Inside is an invitation. It says that Tioles has prepared a wedding dress for Nia and invites her to the palace. As soon as the girl feels better, the princess hopes her gift will help win Titania's forgiveness. After reading the message, Shay tells Lucius that she guesses who poisoned her and even knows why they put it on her. Someone decided to take revenge for having their toy taken away. The Duke understands that it was Lady Peridot. The heroine expresses the idea that it is beneficial for the princess to maintain friendly relations with both girls, Titania and Christiana. The rivalry between Lady Peridot and Miss Oberon will only benefit the princess. In this situation, Tioles will completely strengthen her position as leader, and all competitors will eliminate themselves. That is why the princess sent a postcard, which is in Shay's hands. His Highness writes that she knows who added the poison, but will not punish her, and at the end of the message asks for patience. But Shay is not satisfied with this position, and she will not stand idly by. After listening to the bride, the Duke says he will try to find a way to catch Christiana, even though she is under the protection of the imperial family. As Shay feels much better, Lucius gives her a gift. Upon opening the box, the girl discovers a fountain pen made at the Imperial Ministry of Magic. It never runs out of ink and can be used to write on any surface. Shay is very happy with this gift. Lucius explains the choice of gift with the girl's story about the desert. When she had neither a pencil nor paper, Shay is surprised that the Duke remembers this, but he cannot forget it because it is connected with a beautiful girl. Princess Tioles meets Princess Peridot and invites her to accompany her. Christiana passes by saying that it has been a long time since she and Her Highness had tea together. The princess justifies the lack of time by being busy with government affairs, and she finds out how Peridot's investigation is progressing. The princess reports that her experiments have failed, and she is thinking of moving in a different direction. Taking Christiana's hand, the princess says that it really doesn't matter if there is a result or not, and leads the princess to the tea table. Led by the hand, Peridot follows the princess. Only someone who is not her doll and is genuinely interested in her can meet the princess face to face. While pouring tea, Tioles wonders what the princess meant, that she even demanded a personal meeting. Peridot asks the princess what to do if there is a wild cat in the henhouse. She thought the cat should be caught, but what to do if this cat has an owner who will be very angry if something happens to it? Tioles reminds the princess that Lucius really likes Titania, and he will not be happy if his toy that brings him fun is taken away. Peridot expects the princess's cooperation, reminding her that she has rendered a service to the imperial family, and Her Highness has promised a reward, a power that will help add the surname Schwaden to the princess's name. The princess cannot refuse Christian, but she thought it was not that important, because the princess feels nothing for Lucius. Upon learning of the little importance, the princess can barely contain herself. After all, she has done a lot to make the princess happy. Peridot presses the fact that the Christian family will become Her Highness's greatest support. And if the princess married the Duke, she could do much more for Her Highness. Otherwise, she will no longer be able to count on her family's help. Then Peridot realizes that she has gone too far and feels very uncomfortable. After listening to the princess, Tioles says that no matter what Peridot does, she will not interfere. Krishna is surprised that the blackmail worked and that the princess will not interfere in her plans. Her Highness remembers that she loves to have fun, and if Titania leaves the Duke of her own free will, she will personally direct Peridot and Lucius's wedding. Despite the princess's generous offer, she feels that the atmosphere has changed, so it's better to leave before things get worse. The princess stops Peridot because the princess didn't understand something, so she will have to explain it to her. Her Highness does not need the insignificant support of the Crisian family. This is exactly what Tioles informs the princess. The second one feels very uncomfortable with the tense situation. Tioles the tyrant grabs Peridot by the neck and reminds her that she is the crown princess, and soon she will become empress. The way the princess begged seemed amusing to her Highness, but nothing more. Having pushed Peridot aside, the princess warns that if she decides to threaten again, thinking that she can spin Tioles as she wishes, then her Highness will destroy the entire family. And there are no irreplaceable people, and you must keep your place longer. Closely, grabbing her neck, Peridot realizes the fatal mistake she made. The princess bows to the future empress. Looking at her, the princess warns that she will remember this. Applying ice to the bruises on her neck, the princess asks the maid if the rumors about the party in honor of Titania's brand launch are true, that she won thousands of gold there. The maid has a report in her hand. She pretended to come to buy a dress and asked about it, but no one told her the details. Peridot was angry with Titania for taking over the building. Now the princess was no longer interested in conquering Lucius, especially after the princess's punishment. Deciding that if she doesn't catch the Duke, no one will catch him, the #1 villain plans to kill Lucius. Asking her plants for help, the princess takes a drop of poisonous liquid from them and processes the soap. The maid is ordered to deliver soap to the captain through a knight of the Rentis order. Named Thomas, she remembers falling asleep while drawing, but when she wakes up, she doesn't understand why she's not at home. But in the princess's palace, Tioles has finally waited for Titania to wake up. Cientina faithfully serves at any time. Her Highness sits on the guest bed and announces that now they can talk seriously about the upcoming engagement. The princess assures that not everything is as scary as it seems, and if the wedding must take place following all the rules, then the engagement is informal, and all that is needed is to dress up and have a lot of fun. Shay listens with interest to her Highness's story and imagines some of the moments. Tioles lays out several dress sketches in front of Titania and offers to choose something to her liking. But the bride does not want to hold the celebration indoors because it is spring, and the weather is nice. Here she notices that Lady Cientina is alone in a corner and is not participating in the discussions. The princess invites Madame Adales to join and asks which flowers would be most suitable. Maybe roses, lilies, or wildflowers, but Cientina replies that she knows nothing about it. The heroine of the occasion interrupts this dialogue with the message that she likes lilies. Tioles finds this fact interesting. She thought Nea liked bright flowers, but Shay suggests saving them for the wedding. In accordance with the guest's opinion, Her Highness offers to try on the dress prepared for Titania. The heroine tries on a dress. It fits her perfectly. The princess expresses this fact aloud. Shay is confused by the height of the heels of the new shoes. Tioles explains that they were adjusted to Lucius's height, but apparently they were a bit exaggerated, and invites the girl to try walking. The girl assesses her chances and still decides to do a test walk. The princess and Kshantina carefully watch Titania's step. At first, the girl moves quite confidently. Suddenly, unable to bear the height of the heel, one of She's legs twists, and she quickly falls to the floor. Both observers are scared, because Titania might get hurt and nobody wants that. Both Cientina and Tioles rush to help the guest and manage to catch her. The princess holds Nea from behind, and the knight takes her in his arms. They place the Duke's bride on the floor and make sure everything is in order. Upon getting up, Cientina comments to Titania that she should have been more careful. But the girl didn't fall because she wanted to. The princess suggests getting rid of those shoes because if she wears them, she won't be able to stand. And Her Highness cannot allow Nea to get hurt. The exchange of banter is interrupted by a maid who enters and asks Her Highness to leave, so she must tell her something. Cientina and Titania are left alone in the room. Shay has an insidious idea. She still wants to get closer to Madame Adales. The girl sighs. She pretends that she cannot support herself on her leg at all due to the pain. She reveals her inner actress to the fullest. Cientina assumes that the guest has sprained her ankle and asks her to inform her if Nea needs her help. Shay is already sitting on the floor. She is very eager to take advantage of this opportunity. In any case, Lady Cientina will act nobly, because the first rule of the code of chivalry is to help the weak. And be courteous to ladies, even Shay. She sheds a tear to make her position authentic. The princess returned to the room in a very good mood. Her spirits were further lifted by what she saw. The princess saw the girls standing almost embracing. She asked when Cientina and Titania managed to get so close. Madame Adals refutes the princess's opinion. She justifies such closeness by saying that Lady Oberon hurt her leg and had to be helped. After hearing Cientina's awkward attempt to give an excuse, the princess reminds her that it is time for a guard change. Shay seems offended and calls the knight indifferent. Tioles explains that although Cientina seems cold, she is very kind. She never had friends, and then Titania appeared. Cientina offers to take the lady home. Adele still accompanies Titania home, and the whole way, the lady thinks it would be great if her friendship with Cientina were real. The girls meet Lucius. He doesn't understand why the women are here together. Shay says she pretended to twist her leg, and Cientina accompanied her home. Adales is annoyed by Titania's deception and feels uncomfortable with the current situation. The knight says goodbye. She intends to return to the princess. Shay says goodbye and says they will see each other again. When Cientina leaves, she declares that the lady doesn't need to bother or seek to meet her. Shay is in the study, concentrating on painting and paying no attention to anything around her. All her attention is focused on the details of the drawing. The Duke approaches and casually tells she that she has paint on her nose, which scares the girl so much that her heart sinks into her throat. She turns to the man with indignation. She wants to know how long Lucius has been here, if he really saw her rubbing her nose while thinking. Schweden didn't want to scare the girl. He confesses that he was in the room and was watching for about 5 minutes. Lucius takes out a handkerchief and offers to help she wipe the oil paint off her nose, which he then does, carefully lifting the girl's face towards him. The heroine notices that the man's hands smell somehow different, not like always, but it's not entirely clear why. Shay tries to find out where Lucius was and what soap he used to wash. The Duke says he was at a knightly order and used what was in the order's shower to wash. The girl claims that the smell is very different from the usual one. Trusting her intuition, Shay approaches the man and sniffs. She realizes that something is wrong here, but doesn't understand what. Looking up, the heroine notices that the Duke's neck and ears are red. She cannot say a word at this moment. Having controlled himself, Lucius tells the bride that if she gets any closer, it will be very difficult for him to restrain himself. Only now did the girl realize the awkwardness of the current situation. Color immediately flooded her face. She had never experienced such discomfort. Schweden, once calm, says that since she doesn't like the smell, she can calmly wash again if it makes her feel better. The artist, still embarrassed, refuses, because not everything is so bad and she herself got covered in paint while painting. Lucius still decides to go to the bathroom, without listening to She's objections. He declares that this procedure will not take long. The girl wonders if the Duke is really upset, because he has once again drawn the line. She needs to compose herself, because she knows she cannot give her heart to this man. Shay apologizes for getting too close. She was just hesitating. Lucius, without listening to her, in a loud tone, informs that he has not been out with any other woman except her. The heroine is even more embarrassed. She didn't mean that at all, but she can't tell the Duke that she knows about Peridot from the book. Shay gets away by saying that according to her instinct, something is wrong with this soap. However, she pushes the man towards the door, sending him to rinse again. And if he goes, he should bring her the same soap. Shay slides down the door to the floor. She was so embarrassed that she almost got into trouble because she didn't want to. But now everything seems fine. She understands that she shouldn't fall in love with this handsome man. However, Lucius showers again. He usually manages his emotions very well. But for some reason, he loses control next to her. The man remembers that he wanted to attract the girl to him, but unfortunately, such behavior is unacceptable. Time passed unnoticed. The engagement day arrived. Shay had already put on the dress given to her by the princess. It suited the girl very well. She was beautiful that day. While waiting for the ceremony, Juliet showered the hostess with praise, and Shay was still waiting for her fiancé. The waiting time could have been spent with friends, but the girl had none. The girl seemed accustomed to being alone. Sitting and waiting, she began to immerse herself in memories of the real world. The heroine's parents were always busy and in debt. To survive, she had to work tirelessly from her student years. While working and studying at the same time, she never managed to make friends. In the end, she distanced herself from everyone. In the book world, she also has to fight for her life. But at least there is no need for money. No need to worry about the interest that will have to be paid next month. Well, in the end, everything is fine. Now all that remains is to earn your place in the sun and live happily ever after. The door was knocked on, and the girls from the brand launch party entered, and they agreed to become friends with the heroine. Shay was happy and surprised to see Lady Cynthia and Lady Regina here. The girls replied that no matter what, friends must support each other. It is true that the ladies did not receive invitations and did not know if they could come. They really wanted to congratulate the bride in person. Such behavior would be considered rude. Shay thanks them for coming. She is really very happy. The ladies sat down at the tea table, but there was still awkwardness in the air. The hostess of the celebration didn't know how to start a conversation and what topic to choose. However, an idea occurred to her. Having made a decision, Titania asked a question to start a conversation. She asked if the girls were engaged or if they had chosen boyfriends for themselves in childhood. At first, the heroine said it and then thought if it was too tactless. Lady Regina decided to answer first. She said that she is interested in writing and doesn't want to get married at all. She also said that she secretly sends her messages to the newspapers. For Lady Cynthia, this topic was sad. Her lover died 4 years ago after falling from a horse, and she no longer wants to associate with anyone else. The girls made a request to Titania. If she becomes the Duke's wife, they would like to be bridesmaids at the wedding. Maybe the bride can grant them such an honor. Shay thought about it. She hadn't thought about this topic before, so she was a little confused and delayed in answering. While this makes sense, when Shay becomes a duchess, she will need companions to live with. Their role is different from that of maids. They have the task of taking care of her body and gathering information about events happening in society. The heroine finds the girl's proposal sweet. Deep down, she wants to have real friends. Regina and Cynthia promise that if the lady names them her companions, they will never betray her trust, and they will be by her side anywhere and anytime. Shay decides to ask a question that worries her. If she names girls as companions, can they be friends? The girls happily accept such a proposal. All the girls are happy with this outcome. A maid entered and warned Lady Titania that the ceremony was beginning, and that the bride would leave soon. The new companions grab Nia by the arms. Due to the high heels, there is a high chance she won't be able to stand. The bride is sincerely grateful to them. Nania will notice from outside. She is clearly not happy with this sight. The bouquet even falls from her hands. Nania calls Lady Overton. Shay did not expect such a guest for the ceremony at all. The insolent girl asks in tears how Titania could choose other companions instead of her. Nania continues complaining, saying that she tried so hard for the lady and betrayed her. Shay, looking at the screaming girl, doesn't understand how a person's aura can be so dark and gloomy. No, this shouldn't happen before the engagement ceremony. Shay wants to stop this misfortune, and pretending to be sweet, addresses Nanilla and tells her she has a request. These words seem to hypnotize the screaming one, and she immediately calms down. Shay hears something and turns to those accompanying her. Cynthia and Regina report in loud whispers that time is running out, and they must move on. The lady asks Nanilla if she took the glass from which Titania drank at the reception. Nanilla wonders how the lady knew she had the glass. It's a good thing it hasn't disappeared. Shay asks to bring this glass along with its contents. The girl doesn't understand why she is doing this, but Titania doesn't say anything definitive, only that such an important task can only be entrusted to Nanilla. The fan is incredibly happy about this trust. And for Shay, this is a mission accomplished. With the help of this glass, she will be able to catch Lady Peridot red-handed. Having finished with Nanilla, Shay, accompanied by her companions, approached the door of the hall where the ceremony was taking place. Lady Overton was called. She entered the hall thinking that now she would officially become Lucius's bride. And not just with words. Shay saw the hall decoration and was stunned for a moment, as the princess said the engagement ceremony would be informal, but they treated it like a wedding. Lucius was waiting for his bride. In Shay's eyes, he was more beautiful than ever. The girl blushed a little out of embarrassment. The Duke looked at her intently from his place. The priest gives an opening speech and asks the loving hearts to call each other by affectionate names. Holding hands, only 2 words, Naya and Lucy, are heard from the couple. Shay tries to understand why her heart is beating so fast. After pronouncing the names, the ceremony director continues with a solemn speech. All the sounds around her merged into a kind of cacophony. Everything around her ceased to be important. Shay recovered mentally. She must not have false hopes. This relationship will end when the main character of the novel appears. They carried wine, which was to be drunk without letting go of the companion's hands, as a sign of the sun god's blessing. The engaged couple takes turns drinking wine from the hands of the one who brought it. The ceremony comes to an end. The priest asks if these two have anything to say to each other, and then says it in front of the guests present. Lucius has something to say. He is grateful to fate that Nia is by his side. Even if she faces many trials in the future, he swears that he will help her overcome them all, and that he will always and everywhere protect his fiancée. For Shay, the engagement was emotionally difficult. There were 6 months left until the main character appeared. The girl must endure, and during this time not fall in love with Lucius. After the ceremony, the couple walked down the aisle. Lucius asked if his fiancée was tired. Shay assured the Duke that everything was fine, and there was nothing to worry about. Schweden offers to carry the girl in his arms if it is difficult for her to walk, to which Shay asks him to stop, and defiantly walks forward, demonstrating that she is capable of walking on her own. Lucius asks the girl not to go further and to take his hand, because it is dangerous for her to walk here alone. Shay doesn't understand where the danger comes from, because they are in the princess's palace. There is simply no safer place. The bride cannot refuse. It will seem strange to the Duke, and she takes his hand. The girl really hopes that if she doesn't fall in love with Lucius, like Shay in the original story, she will be able to avoid the sad fate of repeating the destiny of villain number 4. Lucius says it would be great if the path were longer. It's a pity that it is too short. He doesn't want to let the fiancée go. The couple reached the bedroom door, and the time came to wake up from a wonderful dream and establish the limits of what is permitted. She asks the Duke to let go of her hand, because no one else sees them and there is no point in continuing to pretend to be a couple. Schweden asks if she really believes that all this is just a farce, and believes that she is the only one who wants to believe it. The Duke looks at the girl tenderly. He is not going to convince her otherwise. Looking at her fiancé, she realizes that her words hit the mark again, but she cannot go that far. Having succumbed to the man, the girl melts into a kiss with him, and because of this sweetness, she loses the ability to think seriously. The kiss warms you up. Lucius' hands and lips are so hot you could get burned by them. The passionate kiss is interrupted, and the Duke really wants to hug the girl. For some reason, this request frightens she. She asks the man not to do this and pushes him away. Lucius tries to say something to Shay, but she interrupts him and asks to talk tomorrow. The girl, without saying anything else, pushes her boyfriend away and disappears behind the bedroom door. Having closed the door, Shay cannot move away from it. In her head beats the thought that she has gone crazy. Absolutely and definitely crazy. Sitting on the floor, the girl realizes that the Duke is still standing outside the door. And apparently, he has no intention of leaving. Shay is ready to cry, because if Lucius weren't so kind, she could just let the situation pass. But she doesn't know what to do now or what to do. A week passed after the engagement. They wrote about it in every newspaper that existed in the empire. Reading the press, Shay looked for information about the amusement park. Finally, she found it mentioned in the news. There were so many articles about the engagement this week that it seemed like the editors had forgotten everything else. It's unclear why people care about someone else's personal life. Shay expressed all this out loud, pressing a man dressed in black against the floor. Kitty was nearby, on guard. The girl wants to know who sent the mercenary, but he swears he doesn't know. She is surprised that this is the 8th consecutive mercenary who doesn't know who he works for. Shay is very unhappy. She hasn't been able to draw anything for a week. Due to her worries, her inspiration has completely disappeared. And this mercenary woke her up too. A knock on the door and Lucius's voice, asking what the noise was made, the girl stopped her strong indignation. She tries to assure her fiancé that everything is fine. The Duke opens the door unceremoniously and doesn't believe what he sees or what is happening in the room. An interesting picture unfolds. The defeated assassins are lying around the room in different places and corners, and there are many more than one or two. Seeing this, Lucius concludes that apparently he will have to hire soldiers to guard the house. Shay says it's fine. Well, Lucius cannot say the same about himself. He asks if this is why the girl couldn't sleep. The Duke is worried about his fiancée and, approaching her, checks if she has any injuries and if she is safe. The girl assures her fiancé again that everything is in order, and Kitty protected her perfectly. Despite last week, She still doesn't feel comfortable even being next to the Duke. She changes the subject and starts talking about the park. Lucius says there are no more than 2 weeks of work left. She claims that everything is going very well because Schweden has a lot of money and she didn't have to look for investors. Lucius doesn't believe what he hears. Shay is really only attracted to his wealth and nothing else. Shay first claims that she can be better than money, and then she cannot understand why Lucius looks at her so sadly. The chemistry of feelings is interrupted by Kitty, who demands that security be hired. He is tremendously furious because mercenaries attack every day. The girl asks Lucius to go to her room because there is nothing else to worry about. As he leaves, the Duke asks to be called. If anything happens, he promises to hurry immediately. Shay sends him to bed with a smile, assuring him that nothing else will happen. But as soon as the door closes, the smile disappears from the girl's face. She sighs deeply, because if she continues to react this way to Lucius, she won't be able to leave calmly at the right moment. The black leopard exposes its back to its owner and hugs her with its tail. Shay falls asleep before reaching the bed. A secret meeting of aristocrats takes place, where the origins of the redhead are discussed, and plans are made to break off the engagement. The people at the table turn to the man sitting at a distance. They want to know why Lord Aragon is silent, because he initiated this conversation. The Lord demands that the wedding of Lucius and the redhead not take place. It must be interrupted at any cost. Let the aristocrats convey the plan to their wives and daughters. The stranger must be publicly disgraced by any means necessary.